Welcome to the Dire Wolf Show, where we believe that America is exceptional and that our constitutional rights should never be infringed. I am Dire Wolf. On our show, we bring you the truth and debunk fake news. If you love laughing at the insanity of the regressive left, sit back and relax. Boy, do I have a show for you.
Move it to the correct position. Welcome back, Wolfpack. Dire Wolf here for our weekly news recap from Behind Enemy Lines on YouTube, where speech is not free and the truth is demonetized. Alongside me is my co-host, Fox Trevize. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic today. This is a very, very special show. It's a bonus. It's a bonus show. You guys don't know that's a bonus show, but we were planning on not doing a show, and then we decided to do a show. So we took it away, and then we gave it back to you. And you're none the wiser unless I say something about it, but it's actually a bonus episode.
Yeah, he's only telling you this so that you can feel like you owe us something, because we just gave you a gift of actually doing the show that we were going to do anyways.
Yeah,
we didn't tell you we were not going to do.
Exactly.
Okay. In any case, so you were talking earlier about the lefties trying to indoctrinate kids earlier and earlier, right?
Yeah. So I mean, and obviously, a lot of stuff happened this week on that, and a lot of stuff's been happening the last few months with the whole grooming thing and the drag kids scandal and all this politicization and sexualization of children that the left seems so hell bent on doing. And you've got kids, and so I was wondering, obviously, when do you start getting them involved in child drag shows? The answer is never. It's too young as all the ages. But in general, when do you start getting them involved with politics? Because as we know, the left doesn't have kids, they have yours. And so if you're not teaching and discussing with your children political strategies and political ideals and sharing your values with them, well, then the left is going to do it. So obviously it seems that the left is going at them pretty young, but how young is too young for you as a parent to start introducing your child just to general politics and talking politics and economics with them?
So two bits of advice for parenting would be: first thing is always speak to a child with intelligent sentences like they are an adult, because you want them to start learning to speak like an adult. You don't want to speak to them baby speak, because you don't want them to emulate that, right?
I mean, Dire, really, I mean, do you really think that talking to children with baby talk and goo goo gaga and having these infantilizing TV shows that have just no narrative fabric to them whatsoever, and just treating children like babies well into their adolescence, I mean, that clearly hasn't had any knock-on effects, and people having adolescent syndrome well into their 20s and sometimes into their 30s.
It has definitely delayed or possibly permanently retarded some people's maturity. Yes. So first thing is,
I was totally wrong on that then.
Yes, you do speak to them. Obviously, the content of what you talk about has to be based off what they can actually understand. But you need to start building their ability to understand by starting with simpler concepts. And yes, you explain why you're doing things, and in everyday life, and you include morals and values in those lessons. And then when you're going throughout your day, you explain to your young children what you're doing. You're teaching them new words, but you're also explaining so they can copy you later on, right? Yeah, my kids, I think, probably are more well-versed into politics than the average kid of their age. Just a day ago, I was sitting with my daughter at her birthday party at the table with a cake, and she, out of the blue, asked me about whether or not restricting abortion would force adverse financial outcomes for single-parent homes, and if it would have additional knock-on effects to unemployment, higher education rates, and substantially reducing the overall productive potential of a large segment of society. This thus lowering our GDP and hurting our position as an economic superpower.
That's rather insightful for a third grader.
Very insightful for a first grader. So she So I told her that a civilized society doesn't determine whether or not people are allowed to live based on how much money they add to the GDP. We do not value human lives in dollars and cents. And she's like, "Oh, thanks, Daddy," and then asked me to pass the cake.
Things that really happened. Obviously, a little bit of jest there. The left loves to do this. Oh, my kid said this thing about why did the bad man do these things and why is he orange, and always like having these fake stories about their kids. So we thought we'd poke a little bit of fun at that, and we may have this be a recurring bit where we'll come up with some absurd scenario that Dyer's children have asked him as kind of a foil for making a wider statement about some topic.
Yeah, I'd like to make this the only time we explain the joke, and this moving forward, we just have insane questions from my kids moving forward every show.
Yeah, from now on, Dyer's first grade child it'll be canonical that they just ask Dyer college level questions using like postgraduate vocabulary.
Yes. Hey, before we move any further with the show, I want to just thank everyone who makes this show possible. That's the viewers like you. And I don't mean that in the case like PBS, where they take your money by force and then provide a TV show that you don't like. You give us money and then we produce a show you don't like. It's willing. So thank you very much for Kaylette, Ori Main, Nathan Cameron, Tetris Freak, Slowpoke, Thunder Erican, The White Lion, Timberwolf, The White Wolf, Adder Lupus, all you guys. We very much appreciate all of you guys who donate to us. Also, if you want to just help us out and you don't want to donate to us financially, just drop a like, share, subscribe. Those things help us out a lot. Thank you.
Just to Shadow Wolf and Triumvirate, the real secret is that whether Dyer explains a joke or not, it's still not funny. Alrighty, so that was our kind of our funny comment. I did have a funny opening video, but I decided to shove it into a story for later on. So there'll be funny videos later. First off, though, is a very serious video. There's a lot of things that happened this week, and this happened rather early in the week, so it kind of got lost. But there was one of those viral videos, which are just a dime a dozen these days, of violence in California came out, and this one, which we'll see here in a second, was of a young mother, walking with her 8-month-old baby in a stroller, and somebody tried to run her over with a car. That person was then given a very extremely lenient sentence from the DA and was free to go. And this mother felt like their justice wasn't served. The video was rather shocking, and Tucker Carlson tracked this woman down and found her. Tracked her down and invited her on for an interview. Sounded like he maybe was going to run her over or something there. And this interview is, we're going to watch this and react to it because I had a slightly different take on it than Tucker did. Now, I understand Tucker can't say what we're going to say about it because Tucker's, invited her on. He can't just invite on this civilian woman who isn't, a political figure or whatever and just tear her to shreds. But Dyer and I can. So that's what we're going to do here tonight. Let's watch.
We showed you tape last night that was so awful that we hesitated before putting it on. It's terrifying. A hit and driver in Los Angeles last August. A 16-year-old stole a car and intentionally ran over a woman who was pushing her 8-month-old son in a stroller. We're going to show you again. It's disturbing. Before we put it on the screen, though, we should tell you that the mother and child are well, but it's still awful to see. And you should also know the LA Soros-backed District Attorney, George Gascon, has announced the guy who did this will receive a sentence of only 5 months in a, quote, diversionary program. Now, the mother who was injured in that attack is, of course, outraged. Obviously, what does it say about the value of her life? She has requested we refer to her only by her first name, Rachel. We're honored to have her join us now. Rachel, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Tucker.
So that tape is really, we actually debated whether to put it on. It's that awful. I can't even imagine how you feel how do you feel when you see that?
At this point, I'm pretty numb to it. I watched it about I'd say at least 1,000 times. I've steel shotted it to see, did I do what I thought I did? Did I do everything I could to protect my child? And thankfully, I think I did.
Yes.
But it was very tough to watch at first. Made me very sick. But I'm okay now.
We're going to come back to did she do everything she could to protect her child in a minute, but just remember that sentence there.
I'm watching it.
It seems very obvious, and I'm just looking at the screen right now. There's space for him to avoid you and your son, but it looks like he did it on purpose.
Absolutely, he did it on purpose. I made eye contact with him as he was approaching us. I screamed for him to stop. There was plenty of room. 2 cars can fit. It's a one-way street, so it's meant for just one car. But there are cars that can park on the side of the road, and there's still plenty of room for another car to pass.
So anyone who would mow down a mother and her baby in a stroller on purpose is someone who should be locked far away from the rest of us, no?
Absolutely, and I just learned from Bill Malusian on Sunday that the kid had a felony record already and was out on probation when he hit me.
So how do you, this is almost a rhetorical question, how do you feel about what George Gascon has done? What message does that send? It sends a lot of messages. It sends messages to criminals that, it's okay to do bad things because we're not going to punish you. We're going to punish the victims instead. I'm just beside myself with the comments that he's come out with on Twitter, citing that, California law says that the punishment is fair, when in fact it's just his policies that he put into place that prevent us from getting appropriate justice. Yeah, he assigns no value to your life or your son's life at all, it feels like.
No. He can take the time to tweet about it and make this a political thing, which it's not. I'd like to admit I'm a Democrat and I voted for George Gascon as race.
Oh, there it is. Okay, so now do we feel quite so bad for her? Well, why is this happening to her? Well, she voted for it. She voted for George Gascon. She voted for Democrat policies. And Dyer, I'll let you speak here for if you got anything else to say, but she'll go on and talk about that she actually loved and supported George Gascon's policies. She thinks that there needed to be prison reform. She thinks that we are too harsh on criminals.
This is prison reform. This is exactly what we're looking at. Oh, a violent criminal already has a long rap sheet. Well, let's try to reform them by putting back on the street and putting them through diversion programs that allows them to still be a danger to society. We're not allowing law-abiding citizens to have guns, but we're letting criminals drive the even more dangerous weapon, a vehicle, into public. This is insane. No, you're not doing everything to take care of your child. First off, if you were doing everything, you could have been armed. Second, you wouldn't be voting for someone who if you know what prison reform is, it is taking people who have committed criminal acts, a lot of them violent acts, and you're trying to make it so they're not in jail. So that's what prison reform in general is. And then Gascon, the DA,
particularly radical, particularly
radical one who is during his campaign, it was very clear about how he doesn't want to enforce most of the laws. He wants to keep empty the jails of all the violent criminals, and this is the direct result of the policies he said he wanted to do, and he is doing, and that's what she voted for. You thought it was totally fine to release violent criminals into the streets when you didn't see it affecting you, but now it's affecting you, it becomes a problem.
Yep, all of a sudden. So we'll let the tape roll here because I don't want you to think like, well, she's a Democrat and, a lot of times it's just, well, I'll vote for anybody with a D next to their name. I'll just, do a straight ticket vote or whatever. No. She's about to say, I saw what George Gascon's policies were and I still support those. Let's let the tape roll on that.
It's a Republican family, so I'm pretty centrist, but I lean left. And, I voted for this guy because I believe that, our prisons do need some reform, but rewarding criminals, violent criminals for their actions is very far from any kind of reformation that anybody would think is appropriate.
Yeah, so I don't know what she thinks prison reform is. I would say Dyer just gave an excellent description of what prison reform is. So you're either left with a person who has a completely incoherent ideology, which is kind of the hallmark of the left, right? You have all of these things that are completely at odds with each other, completely conflicting ideas, where she thinks that we need to have safer streets and punish criminals, but also have prison reform. You can't have both. And I think that the left has made it very, very clear. I think George Gascon made it very, very clear what prison reform is. I mean, the left is the party of defund the police. I know that they've tried to walk that back the last 6 months, but she voted for Gascon at the absolute height of the anti-police rhetoric. So, she wasn't just a regular NPC Democrat voter that votes for a D. She actively supported the policy. It wasn't just because he had a D next to his name. She thought, oh, George Gascon has this policy. I like this policy. I like the policy of prison reform. I'm going to vote for him because of that policy. And then what does George Gascon do? Well, he institutes the Democrat prison reform that they've all had a platform for. That's been very obvious from the beginning what that is. And then what did she get? Well, she got a person who was, prison reformed. There's kind of a cliche saying, and I hate it because it's just kind of campy and, dorky Republican speak. But, a Democrat is just a Republican who hasn't been mugged yet, is an old common saying. And while I don't know if getting run over by a car counts as a mugging, but it's certainly close. She
clearly hasn't learned her lesson yet. She still says that she's in favor of prison reform. She'd still vote for another Democrat who says, "Oh yeah, I'm for prison reform, but I'm still going to keep you safe." Right? No. Those two things is how the Democrats refer to what they mean by prison reform. Those things don't work well together. She is likely to keep voting for the same people who will continue these policies that put other people in danger, to continue having her be in danger. Other people will be hurt because of who she helped get elected. People have died. A lot of people have died because of who she helped get in office.
Yeah.
And she seems to still not learned a lesson, so that will continue to happen. You know what she might think, though? A lot of Democrats, they create these hellholes by voting for these Democrat policies, Democrat politicians. And they say, well, now I feel unsafe. I need to move away. And they move to another state that doesn't have these problems, that is run by Republicans, and then they vote for the same policies there because they don't learn their lesson.
Exactly. And if I do let this continue playing, she'll talk about that she's considering moving. She doesn't feel safe in the city anymore, and she's going to move. She's going to move to your state. She actively advocated for and voted for a hellhole that she had to live in. And then all of a sudden she gets to reap the whirlwind, as Chuck Schumer might say. Well, we'll see that tape in a little bit. But she gets to reap the consequences of the hellhole she voted for. And now she's going to abandon that hellhole, and she's going to come to your state and then vote for the same thing there. Obviously, her 8-month-old child, this is terrible what happened to him. Her 8-month-old child obviously does not deserve to be hurt for his mother's stupidity. But as a mother, she deserves to have that feeling in her gut that her child is in danger. That's probably the worst feeling a person can feel. And her vote, her advocacy has given that feeling probably even worse to many, many mothers of other parents whose kids were killed and raped by illegal immigrants and gangbangers that were set free by George Gascon and the policies that she advocates for. The terror that the Democrat policies have wrought on countless families across America and across California, she, an advocate of those positions, she deserves to feel a little bit of that terror, even if her child doesn't deserve to die for it. But it is a good thing that she is feeling some of the brunt of the policies she's advocating for. Whoa, oh, that's so callous, Fox. How could you possibly say that? What is the alternative? Is the alternative that somebody that's not her, a Republican perhaps, somebody who doesn't support those positions, that they should be the ones to reap the consequences?
Fox, it is terrible, sad, and unjust when a person who didn't vote for these policies is a victim of these policies. But when someone who voted for these policies is the victim of those same policies, that's just the natural consequence of their own actions. And you can't feel too bad for them.
The Democrat policies, not just in California, not just surrounding prison reform, all the Democrat policies at a national level are bringing about a level of misery we haven't seen in this country probably since the 80s, and probably before that World War II, and then before that the Great Depression. Like we are in for some really, really hard times, and it's directly the result of Democrat policies. To the extent that anybody's going to feel miserable, it's obviously much preferable that the people advocating for those positions are the ones feeling the most misery. But again, if you think if I think I'm being too callous, don't worry. I'm sure I will be miserable at some point in the next decade as well due to these Democrat policies. There'll be plenty of misery to go around. But to the extent that anybody's feeling miserable, anybody's feeling terrified, absolutely, I will stand by that any day of the week. Even if it's a callous position, the people who voted for the policies that led to that misery and suffering deserve the misery and suffering themselves. There is no alternative. The alternative is to have an aristocracy class that we have a two-tiered system where there is this aristocracy, the lords looking over us peasants, and us peasants have to deal with the consequences of their rule and deal with all the hardship, while they get to have completely insulated from all the consequences of their decisions. That can't be. We are in a republic. We vote democratically. The point of that is that our leaders are supposed to be part of the civilian populace, just like all of us. We weren't supposed to have a ruling class. The ruling class was supposed to be us. And so what that means is the consequences of the decisions of the rulers affect them too. If we get into a situation, and we're already pretty deep into this right now, where the people voting for things that cause hardship are not affected by those hardship, that's it. That's the end of the game. That's the end of the game. And so that can't be.
If you're saying that it is bad for us to say that it is good that the consequence happened to the person who called for the policies that led to the consequence, well, keep in mind, if your end goal is for the suffering to end, the only way that they will change the policies is if those people who are putting those policies in place, the people who are voting for the people, are suffering the consequence, because they're the ones who need to change their behavior. And this is the stimulus, the cause and effect that will lead to them to change their behavior, if anything does change their behavior. So yes, you want them to feel the consequences, because that's how they are given the opportunity to possibly vote differently.
Yes. So this mother is, in general, a bad person, and she is representative of the average Democratic voter. She's dangerously oblivious to the consequences of what she's advocating for. And even after being faced with the horrific consequences of nearly having her child slaughtered by the policies she advocated and voted for, she still thinks, well, I think it was just George Gascon. I think he just implemented my vision wrong. But if we could find somebody else to implement the vision correctly, then maybe it would work this time. It's actually kind of a mini version of the communism of, real communism's never been tried before. I bet you she thinks that George Gascon's just never tried real prison reform. I mean, she almost said that during this interview here. And that is the problem with the country right now, is you have, and the right has this too. I've gone through this a long time ago, but basically because of the education system creating a bunch of mush brains, we're all very susceptible, or the population at large is very susceptible to propaganda from one side or the other. The left has a really big apparatus for collecting those people and turning them into mushhead Democrat voters like this woman is, but the right has that too. And the solution to that is, I don't know. I don't know what we do with a country of people who are not able to critically think and critically understand the relationship between the consequences of their action and their actions causing those. That is really, that cause and effect relationship seems to be missing from so many people. And, well, if you wonder what the consequences of that are, well, look at where the country's at right now. Not going anywhere quick. Not going anywhere good quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. Well, I'm glad her child is okay. And I hope all the rest of the children in California are okay, even though I know that they're not. Alrighty.
Yes.
Well, our next story here is about Hollywood. So, hi Triumvirate's parents. We'll watch our language today. How about that? All right. So, while the left might try to tell you that all of society's ails can be traced back to capitalism, they even have a name for it. They call our current era late stage capitalism. I think a more accurate statement is that we're in late stage central banking. But more importantly, I think we've entered the early stages of fascism. I know what am I, a Democrat now? What are you talking about, Fox?
I did an entire video about how those people who are calling us fascist are themselves fascist. Anyways, the hallmarks of fascism, as is memorialized in a quote attributed to Mussolini, is the lucrative merger of corporation and state. What this means in practice is that the government need not have all of its authoritarian powers centralized. Some of them can be outsourced to the corporate allies of the politicians.
Well, there are many companies that appear to be serving the interests of the Democrat Party. The industry most subservient and merged to the state is, of course, Hollywood and, by extension, the mainstream media. The authoritarian role that has been outsourced to Hollywood is, of course, the Ministry of Propaganda. And boy, oh boy, were they in full effect this week.
First, on Tuesday this week, we had Matthew McConaughey visit the White House this week. When I saw the picture, I was honestly kind of hoping that it was a Contact remake, but unfortunately, Jodie Foster was nowhere to be seen. What the the movie.
Yeah, the
Contact.
movie. Come on, Dyer. It's like one of the best movies ever.
It was a good movie.
Yeah. All right, here's Matthew McConaughey's highlights at the White House.
We want secure and safe schools, and we want gun laws that won't make it so easy for the bad guys to get these damn guns.
Language,
responsible
McConaughey.
gun ownership. Responsible gun ownership. We need background checks. We need to raise the minimum age to purchase an AR-15 rifle to 21.
Do we?
We need a waiting period for those rifles. We need red flag laws and consequences for those who abuse them. These are reasonable, practical, tactical regulations. These regulations are not a step back.
Yeah, you know what's a tactical regulation is not having a gun. It's so tactical.
They're a step forward for a civil society and the Second Amendment.
Infringing the right to bear arms is a step forward for the right to bear arms. That shan't be infringed.
That is insane. So I think that this is missing the root cause of the problem. And so saying that we need to increase the age limit from 18 to 21 for rifles, which is currently the age limit for owning a handgun.
We are going to do a whole segment on that law later if you wanted to save that point.
It's a quick
go ahead.
Moral point. Anyways, so I don't think that it makes sense for us to say that we can't have a gun because a shooting happened, because they're saying, oh, it's because of his age, essentially, is what they're saying. Oh, because his brain's not formed. No, that's not the root cause. There was a time in the past where younger people had guns in schools. There was shooting clubs. There was a different culture, and we didn't have this cultural phenomenon, this many mass shootings. So you could say that it's not the age that is the cause. It is very much a cultural problem where we have, first, a person who committed a bunch of violent crimes, harmed people and animals, and this person was not highlighted as being a possible danger who should not be able to own a gun, because they did not charge this person with a crime that then would have on their record, so they couldn't own a gun. So a failure of of law enforcement, failure of the people in this person's life who knew he was a danger and did not properly make
failure
sure
of community.
So failure of community. Then we have a failure of the community in that we don't have a community that is well armed and well prepared to defend their children from a lone wolf attack, because you can never remove the wild card of there being dangerous people in society. All you can do is make sure that people are more hardened, more able to defend themselves, so when there is a violent person, they can be stopped easier and they could be less effective. The reason why this killer was so effective is because the community was ineffective at reporting him, the community was unarmed, and the police
were cowardly.
Actually enabled the killer to maximize his harm. So these are societal problems, these are community problems that are nothing to do with his age. So changing the age would not solve this problem.
But it'd be a tactical decision, Dyer. Don't you want to be tactical like McConaughey?
When you're trying to balance to ensure people are having their rights, but those rights are not, and then infringing upon someone else's rights. This is a constant balance when we're passing laws and policies. What you're doing here is you are infringing on the constitutional rights of everyone that is below age 21, but older than or 18 or older, but you are not actually solving the problem. So it is wasted infringement, right?
Exactly. All right. So what did you think of McConaughey's word salad there with Asian and tactical and practical and actical?
Well,
that alliteration.
So some of that sounded good. Some of it sounded bad, really bad, as I said. And if you are a little bit confused, remember that Matthew McConaughey is paid to read lines someone else wrote for him. Probably what happened here. And in a way, that makes everyone like him. Are you starting to see the picture now? His visit to the White House was not meant to convey information. It was meant to confuse the issue, turn off your brain. If you're a guy, don't you want to be cool like Matt and support Dem gun policies? If you're a girl, don't you want to wink and nod from this hunky? Don't you want a wink and a nod from this hunky bastard? If you support Dem gun policy, I'm sorry, man, it threw me off. So basically, they're hoping that his reputation, his presence will make people be warmed up to the idea of gun policies, because Matt's cool. He's attractive. People like him already. He's cool. He's in some cool movies. Maybe he is more likable, more credible than the president, who can barely speak.
Exactly.
That no one likes.
And if somebody that attractive and personable likes gun control, then if you don't go along with that, well, then you're probably not cool. You're probably not tactical. Probably not practical. And he's probably not going to sleep with you if you're a girl. So you better support dumb gun policies, right?
Exactly.
So don't fall for this. Obviously, this was just a propaganda piece. It was a distraction, which is why we didn't watch the full. He spoke for like 30 minutes, Dyer. And it was about that
longer
level.
than Biden.
Yeah, like that level of word salad was about what the 30 minutes amounted to. Just him rambling about rhyming words and Dem policies and talking about guns are cool, but controlling them's cool too. And it was very, I don't know, it was very weird, but a lot of people tried to do breakdowns on like specific things that he said. And I said, nope, we're not going to do that. The whole thing was just a distraction. And so we're not going to focus on it anymore. But it was just strange. The reason why we highlight it was because of this theme this week of Hollywood taking on the Ministry of Propaganda operations for the government. It was strange, especially to have McConaughey speaking at the White House press conference, or at the White House press corps room, given that he's a Hollywood actor. So we have a Hollywood actor giving a press briefing at the White House. Joe Biden, the president at the White House, has not given a press conference in like more than 100 days.
That all changed sort of like the next day. On Wednesday night, Biden gave his first press conference in months to Jimmy Kimmel.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and it was a complete disaster. But the thing is, is really funny. Think about it. We have the president of the United States giving press interviews to Jimmy Kimmel on a talk show, and we have Hollywood celebrities, actors, giving press conferences at the White House. That seems kind of strange. It's kind of like a reversal of roles.
Yeah, a little bit. So Joe Biden on, okay, so again, McConaughey was on Tuesday. We're going to go through the schedule a couple of times because it's really weird how so many things happen between Tuesday and Thursday this week, but we'll get into that. So Tuesday, McConaughey talks in front of the White House. On Wednesday, Joe Biden talks to Jimmy Kimmel. And even with a perfectly, now Jimmy Kimmel's just one of the hardest shills for the Democrat Party and has been for quite some time. Also has been funny for quite some time. And somehow managed to avoid getting canceled after some of his early work, which should have definitely gotten him canceled. So even with this perfectly stage managed and very friendly interview, Biden could barely string together a sentence or any kind of coherent.
Oh, I'm serious. You turn on the TV.
Let's watch.
Oh, I'm serious. You turn on the TV. Look at the ads. When's the last time you saw biracial couples on TV? When's the last time you saw the way, people are selling products, they do ads to sell products, and they sell products when they appeal to people. This generation is going to change everything. We just got to make sure we don't give up.
Don't give up.
What the fuck did he just say, though?
You don't give up. Don't give up, Dyer. Well, you can break it down for us, Dyer. Break down what he said for us.
So now there are a few parts to break down on this. First is the biracial couples line. Joe has used this once before, sort of. He's used this one before, but it's been a stump line for him for a few years now. But this time he got it wrong. He said it backwards. What do I mean? He said his own words wrong. He said them backwards. He said, when is the last time you saw a biracial couple on TV?
Here is Joe saying the same line last year, or trying to, and you tell me if you can spot the difference.
And I'm going to say something's going to get me in trouble, which I couldn't go through a whole show without doing that. And that is that, think about it. If you want to know where the American public is, look at the money being spent on advertising. Did you ever 5 years ago think every second or third ad out of 5 or 6 you'd turn on would be biracial couples? No, I'm not being facetious. The reason I'm so hopeful is this new generation. They're not like us.
So just spot the difference. And wow, this clip was from February of 2021. And so you're looking at 16 months, 17 months. Man, what a difference, Dyer. Just what a difference, even just within the presidency. Wow. We thought he was bad back then. Jeez.
He's deteriorating very quickly.
Yeah.
But the point was, he used to say repeatedly the great thing about our generation is that there are biracial couples on television. But now he says, with nothing really having changed in the Hollywood and news landscape, he's saying that you don't see it anymore.
Yeah, so is he saying it wrong? Or is he missaying it? I don't understand what's he trying to say there. Does he think that it's backwards now, or did he change his position on it? I don't know. I just don't know.
More than likely, he's just very confused. I don't think that was a scripted line. I think that's something he was just trying to pull from his experience in talking points. Because you have a lot of things you've practiced that when you don't know what to say, you can just say one of those things that you know, right?
Yeah.
But because his brain's deteriorating, all the information and facts are getting jumbled up, and he doesn't probably even believe that. He probably just spat out some information like muscle memory, but completely missed it.
Well, and we've seen this same effect with things of graver consequences. Like, was it Syria and Iran that he mixed up that we were like going to go to war with, and then he was confused as to like what our foreign policy with Russia was, and regime change. And he said the wrong country on multiple occasions in multiple venues while giving speeches about very weighty and consequential things.
Yeah. And it's kind of scary to have a president in control of the most powerful military. Well, and in charge of our country and everything, our economy, everything. And he can barely string two thoughts together. He is not going to be able to solve problems. He probably can't understand what is being said to him right now. All he can do is very badly read a teleprompter.
And so again, so we don't know. I guess we went from last year, a little bit more than a year ago. You're just seeing these biracial commercials all the time, and then this year he thinks that you don't see them at all. So I mean, he can't even get his own race hustling correct, which is, if a Democrat can't get their own race hustling in line, things are just totally borked for them.
Yeah. Also, words don't mean what he thinks they mean. Biracial means a single person that has mixed genetic heritage. So, is Joe talking about couples that are both light brown? No. The words he's looking for is interracial, not biracial.
But words are hard. Them learned college things in a dictionary. Basically, this all boils down to Joe Biden's inability to communicate effectively, a problem that he acknowledges.
No question about it.
So there's a lot of major things we've done. But what we haven't done is we haven't been able to communicate it in a way that is, let me say another way.
Well, see, that's kind of perfect. Yeah.
Well,
all right, so we're going to break this down.
That's kind of perfect. Well said, Mr. President.
I'm going to break this down part by part and reread what he said. So Joe Biden said, quote, but what we haven't done is we haven't been able to communicate it in a way that is, like might say another way. And then Kimmel interrupts him. Like, I mean, Jesus, Joe, like maybe being able to finish a sentence once in a while might help your communication strategy. I don't know.
Yeah, Jimmy Kimmel was definitely trying to save him the entire time, trying to cut off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're only 13. We're 13 seconds into the 60-second clip, Dyer. I mean, the train wreck is not over.
All right,
not even close.
I've been able to communicate.
But look how the press has changed. Mm-hmm. Look how the press has changed.
It has changed. Oh, listen, I get it.
I know you overstand it.
Yeah.
You don't just understand it; you overstand it. But here's the deal. One of the things is that it's very difficult now to have even with notable exceptions, even the really good reporters, they have to get the number of clicks on nightly news. Mm-hmm. So instead of asking a question, anyway, it just everything gets sensationalized in ways but I'm convinced we can get through this. We have to get through it. And one of the things, look.
I'm going to take a break, and then we'll talk a little bit more, if you don't
mind.
I'm sorry. We have some of those commercials. We have some biracial.
All right, so if you didn't catch all of that, I'll reread it again. Joe Biden said, quote, but here's the deal. One of the things is that it's very difficult now to have an, even with notable exceptions, even though really good reporters have to get a number of clicks. Okay, hold on a second. So here's the deal. One of the things is that it's very difficult now to have, with notable exceptions. He didn't say what it's very difficult to have. He skipped over. I'm just completely mystery. What is it? What is difficult? It's difficult, except with notable exceptions. I don't know what was difficult, though, that he's modifying with that phrase.
I'm glad there's some exceptions to difficulty, though, because, I hate for it to be all difficult.
Yeah, but what's difficult?
Well, obviously, it's the number of clicks. So.
Is that his like, we need to build like one of those sentence trees? I tried to find one of those a while ago. An automatic sentence tree maker. I couldn't find a good one that was free though. But I wanted to like put Joe Biden sentences into it and see what happened and see if it could actually like figure
probably
out.
Die. It'd
Yeah,
probably
it would
kill
just
itself.
catch on fire.
It's a book.
All right, so I'm gonna try and read this again. Okay, so Joe Biden said, quote, "But here's the deal. One of the things is that it's very difficult now to have a even with notable exceptions, even though really good reporters, they have to get number clicks on nightly news. So instead of asking a question, anyways, it's just everything gets sensationalized in ways it but I'm convinced we can get through this. I'm convinced I can get through this. We have to get through it. And one of the things, look."
Okay, so my thing is the general feel of this unintelligible statement is he's trying to say that the media landscape has changed. That is in some way that I can't tell you because he's not in the sentence is not good for him and his message. But no. The Democrat and the left wing media establishment has been bending over backwards to translate his unintelligible speech into like glorious, great statements, trying to make it so he sounds like he makes sense. When they put his words to paper, when they were writing articles about him, they add words they didn't say to fix his sentences for him. They are on his side to make it so people will believe him. They're trying to make him sound better, and then they hide bad information about him. They will turn everything. They will attack his critics. They lied constantly to ridiculous ends about Trump. So no, the media landscape is not bad for Biden. It's been the only reason he was able to get elected was because the media was supporting him. And the idea that because the new way of doing news media requires that we get clicks and it has to have sensationalized headlines.
Well, an interesting point on that is the nightly news does not get clicks.
Yeah.
Like newspapers that are online or podcasts like this one or alternative new media, they get clicks, but the nightly news is like the one media apparatus right now that is not measured based off of clicks. They're measured based off the TV ratings because they're on TV. So I don't know. I guess Biden just thought that clicks was like a catchy buzzword or somebody told him that, and so that's what they said. But
let's just imagine for a second that he called it the nightly news, but he really just means that new media and how everything online is, bite-sized news stories.
Like when he was trying to talk about TV and he said a record player.
Yeah, so. I mean, again, I'm doing what the Democrat left-wing media is doing, and I'm translating for him the best possible.
Okay, I'll let you go down that trail, but the rule is we can only give him the benefit of the doubt on one aspect of the sentence. So we'll give him that one aspect. Well, we're giving the benefit of the doubt that he didn't mean nightly news. He meant news in general, trying to get clicks. Take it away, Dyer.
So let's say he meant that. I still don't think that those sensationalized headlines have been hurting him because the articles from the left-wing media with those sensationalized headlines have been in support of him. So what is he having to combat against? The one thing that's really affecting him is himself, because people are still seeing videos of him stumbling and not be able to actually actually speak a sentence or put two thoughts together. That's what's hurting him. The fact that he can't communicate. Not that because when he does communicate, the news media is sensationalizing the stories about what he said. No. They're correcting what he said.
Yeah. And I agree with what you're saying about the media. Is like, I don't know what it is that he'd be talking about where they're sensationalized against him. I mean, I understand what I think about the media, and I understand my positions on what I think that they sensationalize and the things that they do for clicks and just for gaining that virality. I understand what I think about that, and I have my own feelings about that. But I don't know what Joe is trying to say about the media, because my perspective is that they do all of that in service of Joe Biden and the Democrats against the Republicans. So if Joe is complaining about the exact same things, I have no idea where he's coming from on that. And I don't know if I could. I was trying to put myself in like the shoes of like a leftist. Like, what would a leftist hear from this? Like, do they think that like the media is overly sensationalized and critical against Joe? Like, is that a dog that hunts at all? I don't think so. But also, I think your average leftist probably isn't watching Jimmy Kimmel. They're probably not watching any of this. They're probably just, to the extent that they are, they're mush brains like that mother in the first segment. Just, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea, even though it's got bad outcomes. I'll just go with it, and I'm not going to think too critically about what's being said.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I don't know really what Joe's problem with the media is. But I understand what his problem with us, with conservatives, with not Democrats is. And here in this clip, Joe Biden made it very clear what he intends to do with us.
You often get asked, look, the Republicans don't play it square. Why do you play it square?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? If we do the same thing they do, our democracy will literally be in jeopardy.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
not a joke. And
I understand that argument, but also it's like you're playing Monopoly with somebody who, won't pass go and won't follow any of the rules. And how do you ever make any progress if they're not following the rules?
We've got to send them to jail, There's that little box
directly
to jail.
So it was us burning down cities and doing political violence against politicians throughout the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Wait. Wasn't that Antifa? That was supported by the Democrats? Oh, shit.
Oh, no.
No. Okay, so no. It's not. They're the ones who are not following the rules. They're the ones that are allowing political violence and not putting people in jail who are actually committing crimes against people that they are okay with crimes being committed against. For example, for some context, this video of Biden on Jimmy Kimmel was filmed on Wednesday night. On Wednesday morning, a leftist tried to go to the Supreme Court Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh's house to kill him, to assassinate him. And it was about 18 hours before Joe said Joe's 18 hours
team,
earlier.
Yeah, Joe's team is trying to kill Supreme Court justices, and then he goes on later that night and says, well, it's the Republicans that are breaking the rules. Really?
Yeah.
Really?
So, Wednesday morning, right? Yeah. Monday morning, Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh has an assassin go to his house, a left-wing assassin who has been believing what the Democrats have been saying about how, Kavanaugh is this evil person who's trying to overthrow our country. And then 18 hours later, after one of his guys is trying to assassinate a Supreme Court justice, he's saying it's the Trump Republicans who are breaking the rules, threatening our democracy, and they need to go to jail. Okay. So, yeah, obviously, that is completely insane and devoid of reality. Where do we leave off from here?
Let's see here. So, I think just read that part.
So earlier that morning, a leftist tries to kill Supreme Court justice, and later that night, Joe is talking about how it's the Republicans that don't follow the rules, and how it's the Republicans that are a literal threat to our democracy. We will talk more about Kavanaugh in a bit.
We will. But let's first focus on that line about sending them directly to jail. Obviously, somebody wrote that Monopoly reference for Joe. He was probably around when it first came out, like, originally. That's not a joke, people.
I think the main character was based off of him.
Probably. So, again, this clip was, this interview was filmed and aired on Wednesday night. On Thursday morning, leading Republican candidate for Michigan governor was arrested by Joe Biden's FBI. So the front-runner GOP candidate for governor in Michigan was arrested by Joe Biden's FBI probably not even 12 hours after Joe Biden said, well, the Republicans don't follow the rules, so we'll just send them directly to jail. Okay. We'll talk more about this gubernatorial candidate who was arrested in a bit as well. We got a full segment on that, and we got a full segment on Kavanaugh. So we'll come back to that. This segment's supposed to be more about Hollywood, the propaganda machine, but it's all linked together. It's the Hollywood propaganda machine for the Democrat Party is kind of the fabric that supports the whole thing, which is why it's cross-referenced with so many other stories this week. All right, so but we'll talk more about those stories in a bit, but just think about in general the timing of these things. You've got a couple hours before somebody tries to kill Kavanaugh, obviously a left-winger. Joe Biden says it's the Republicans that are breaking the rules, not us. It's the Republicans that are a threat to democracy, not us. And then he says, and what we're going to do about that is send the Republicans to jail. And then a couple hours later, they arrest the GOP frontrunner for a governorship. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, if you want to see what's the McConnell or not McConnell, McConaughey, Matthew McConaughey, he's the carrot. Joe Biden's FBI is the stick.
Yeah. So the Michigan candidate for governor, the Republican candidate for governor, his arrest was not only a fulfillment of Biden's prophecy a few hours before it happened, it also helped to set the stage for the Jan 6 committee primetime hearing.
January 6th.
Yes. If you did not watch it, you wouldn't be alone. This compilation shows, the compilation we're about to show you, shows you what every major news network was broadcasting during the opening of the hearings, except for Fox News.
Well, you weren't supposed to give that part away, Dyer.
Sorry.
Any dissent is intolerable to them. Like, one guy stands up, Joe Rogan, well, I'm not sure that's right. Bam, let's destroy him. Like, what impulse is that's a totalitarian impulse, isn't it? Any dissent is intolerable to them. Like,
So you can see here, we got, if you got to really zoom in to see it, but I can see it for you guys. So you got starting at the top left, leading left to right here, we got PBS NewsHour, we've got ABC News, CBS News, NBC News, Fox News in the middle, CNN, what's this other one? News One, let's see here, live from Capitol Hill, which I think is a C-SPAN channel, and then another MSNBC there. So you've got basically every cable news outlet, what they're playing at the same time, and it's interesting that what Tucker was saying there is, no dissent is allowed, and you can see the effects of that is every news outlet dutifully played this propaganda piece live except for Fox.
Yeah, and this I'm not sure if you go into this later on, but this thing was put on by a producer. It was timed and choreographed to be perfect propaganda. It was not actually a hearing, but more importantly, it was not what they want you to believe, like a court case. It is not someone being held in court. Sorry. Oh, okay. So we're talking about it here.
Yeah. We'll get back into both of those. But on your point about it being a producer. So, obviously you can see one of these channels was not like the other. But this continues our trend, and what you just brought up about it being a producer for the January 6th committee. What you're talking about there is another piece of Hollywood propaganda. The Democrats they actually paid with your tax dollars the former president of ABC to produce, with, as Dyer said, timing and stage management and all that stuff. The Democrats hired a former president of ABC to produce this primetime January 6th hearing like it was a TV show or a movie. The producer that they selected also used to produce Good Morning in America and Nightline. I mean, this is just the absolute definition of a show trial. And to Dyer's point about the difference between hearings. So one of the things, and maybe you kind of know it. Maybe what I'm about to say is like, oh yeah, obvious. But maybe you kind of know this, but you just hadn't thought about it. The word hearing, when they're talking about a congressional hearing, they're trying to say hearing without the modifier congressional hearing. Why are they doing that? Well, because it's different than a court hearing. There's A court hearing takes place in the judicial branch. But Congress is legislative. They can't have court hearings. Well, no, they have congressional hearings. But if you just say the word hearings and you don't have the modifier congressional hearings, and actually you can see that in a lot of these chyrons. You can see, let's see here, you've got CBS up at the top right. They've got capital assault hearings. NBC says January 6 hearings. You've got CNN says they got the January 6 hearings in there. The one in the bottom middle says Jan 6 hearings. MSNBC says Jan 6 hearings. They're not saying congressional hearings because they want to just gently conflate in your head that this might be a court hearing. Maybe you've never been to court. Maybe you aren't familiar with how court proceedings work. Maybe you just heard the word hearing and you kind of think, oh yeah, like a court hearing, a congressional hearing, like they're kind of the same thing, right? Kind of. No, they're not actually. They're completely different. They're the same only in the sense that somebody is talking and other people are hearing what they say. But that is, and you can go ahead and Dyer with your point as to like what the issue with that is.
Alpha B's here. She said hi.
Oh, hello.
All right, love you. Anyways, so this is the reason why they're doing this this way is because during the impeachment hearings, the Republicans had an opportunity to provide equal amount of testimony and evidence and rebuttal to anything that the Democrats said about Trump, and it made the Democrats prosecutors look really stupid because they just spouted off a whole bunch of lies not supported by evidence and then were immediately rebutted and looked foolish, and it was broadcasted on available for the rest of the country to see. Though they learned their lesson from that, like, well, that looked bad. Our guys stumbled. Our guys were made to look like fools. So instead, this time around, they did hearings where they're presenting evidence and testimony like it's a court case, and they want you to believe it's like a judicial hearing. But then there is no rebuttal. There is no defense. There's no one there from the other side to say, hey, actually what you said is wrong, and here's counter evidence.
But if you think it's a court hearing, then the common person might think like, oh, well, like, I mean, in court, like, that's, both sides get a say and both sides, get to discover who's right. And, so if this is a real hearing and, there's no evidence that January 6th wasn't what they said, then, it must all be true. Because I just don't see any count. I mean, that's how court hearings work, right? And that's the point of dropping the modifier congressional hearing and not being very clear that there's a big difference there. That is a subtle propaganda by omission. And I encourage you to like really think through that and think if maybe you've conflated those on your own, or if maybe people in your life have conflated those, and maybe just gently remind them of that if it ever comes up.
It's also important to note that there is only, I believe, 2 Republicans on the committee, and both of them are Republicans in name only and have been censured by the Republican caucus because of how they are obviously working against the country, working against the party, and supporting the lies of the Democrats because, for whatever reason, I don't know, like Liz Cheney is one of them, right?
Yeah.
Definitely not a conservative. Definitely is just as bad as the Democrats.
I mean, the Cheneys had quite the makeover on their family the last couple of years here with the Democrats. I mean, the Cheneys used to be, the devil incarnate, the baby killer. He was part of what was his military like contractor company that he had. It was Halliburton.
I forget.
I think it was Halliburton and all the scandals with Halliburton, and Cheney like shot his best friend in the face with a shotgun or something, and just the Cheneys were absolute pariahs to the Democrat Party because they were kind of they were actually the evil Republicans that the left says the rest of us are. Like, they were actually correct about the Cheneys, and then all of a sudden, Miss Cheney here, she just decides, oh, well, I'm going to go along with the Democrats for a few years under Trump. And all of a sudden, everyone's totally forgotten that you're supposed to hate the Cheneys. It's really rather amazing.
I think it's because that her family are not Republicans; they are elitists, and they're just trying to say whatever they need to say to remain in power, which is also what the Democrats are doing. They're not affected by the effects of their policies. They will tell you any lie they need to tell you, so they can remain the elites over your lives. Anyways, there's another article here.
Yeah. So, again, we had this real hard-hitting lineup from Hollywood this week. We had McConaughey, then Kimmel, and Biden's talking about arresting people. And then the next morning, people from the Republicans get arrested for January 6th. And then later that night, we've got this big presentation brought to you by ABC. And what did all of that propaganda effort get them? Well, according to this Daily Wire article that broke down the ratings that night, not a lot. So from the Daily Wire, we have the article, "The World is Watching, January 6 Hearings Committee Chairman Boasts American ratings disagree." So on Thursday night, as the January 6th committee convened to start their hearings, Committee Chairman Bernie Thompson boasted, quote, "The world is watching what we do here." According to preliminary ratings figured from Nielsen, the world might have been watching, but most Americans had better things to do. The New York Times tried to hype the number of people watching the hearings by writing breathlessly, quote, "An audience of at least 20 million people watched the first primetime hearings of the House Select Committee's investigation into the January 6th attack on Thursday night, according to Nielsen." But as the Federalist pointed out, that wasn't much to brag about. Quote from the Federalist, according to preliminary ratings figures from Nielsen published by the New York Times, more than 19 million people tuned in for what was anticipated to be a blockbuster event. While 19 million may seem high at first glance, a look at what cable broadcast networks typically pull for an average evening reveals Thursday's viewership as little to brag about, especially when all but one, Fox News, aired the live stream. So they're trying to say, oh, we had all these people tune in. Well, yeah, when you tune every TV channel to the same thing, yeah, a lot of people tuned in, whether they wanted to or not. The three major networks, CBS, NBC, and ABC, pulled in a total of 11 million viewers. But Adweek noted that for the week of May 30th, those networks' evening programs collectively averaged 7 million more viewers than the number on Thursday night. So on average, if there wasn't the hearing, those networks should have collectively had 7 million more viewers. What's that mean? Is that as soon as the hearing started and all of these channels except for Fox tuned into the hearings, a bunch of people tuned out. And probably just some TVs left over in the airports were left to catch those broadcasts.
To be honest, no one watching this broadcast was going to walk away with their opinion changed. The people who already believed that Jan 6 was some sort of insurrection were just going to be getting some confirmation to their bias, whereas a large portion, I think a growing portion of people who understand that the damage and number of injuries, which is very low, done on Jan 6 is dwarfed by any single night of the George Floyd Antifa riots, and that those things were not tried. Those things were never considered a threat to our democracy, but this thing is. They can see the comparison and how the double standard. They know that Trump and some of his allies who are being tarred and feathered here had said to be peaceful, had told people to not commit acts of violence and to peacefully have their voices heard. They know that there was no instructions from Trump or his team to do any of this. They know that the FBI were deeply involved in this operation, and that the Nancy Pelosi had rejected Trump's offer to have National Guard provide security to the Capitol that day because he had been worried that there might be some sort of unrest there, and he was actually trying to take responsible steps to prevent that from happening. But Nancy Pelosi, for some reason, only wanted the very loyal, Capitol Police to be the only ones there, who then were, for some reason, unprepared and unequipped, they say. But then they invited people into the building, and then the people they invited into the building they then accused of trespassing, and then they're trying to equate trespassing, walking through a building, as being an attack on democracy. I think
it's not even clear that they were trespassing. We've had a lot of them be let off because it wasn't found in a court of law that they were actually trespassing.
I didn't say it was. I'm saying they're being accused of it.
Yeah.
It isn't trespassing. The point is that there's no there, right? And they're trying to spin this narrative to justify their what's the persecution of Trump supporters. They've had them in jail. They've had them in solitary and inhumane conditions for crimes such as trespassing when there was no trespassing.
And the locking up grandma for waving a little flag in the rotunda, that is just the small potatoes. The big potatoes is our next story, which is that a candidate for governor in the state of Michigan was arrested for his alleged involvement in January 6th.
Is this not an attack on democracy? Using the FBI, using the judicial system to try to smear a candidate of the opposite party for crimes they did not commit, just to remove them from the ballot?
Well, I mean, it depends on what our democracy is, Dyer.
What was a greater attack? The people walking through the building on Jan 6, or the federal government using the FBI to go after their political rivals?
Did you see that picture of that Mima waving the little flag in the rotunda?
What's a bigger attack on democracy? Scary. The Trump-Russia collusion narrative that led to a investigation and the trying of a bunch of people for non-crimes just to try to put pressure on the sitting president to try to make it so he couldn't do anything, was trying to tie the hands of a sitting president, but with a bullshit case of treason. Do you think that is more of an attack on democracy, or walking through a building on Jan 6?
Well, and this is why I said we are in early stage fascism, because it's clear that what they're talking about is not an attack on our democracy, but an attack on their authoritarian regime. As all authoritarian regimes do, before they become authoritarian regimes, they have to centralize defense of the regime and its members. All aspects of the government will start turning in to defend itself at the expense of the population. And that is kind of the hallmark of how regular countries turn into authoritarian regimes, is that you start having more and more using the law enforcement arm of the state to start enforcing things against your opponents, and defending not the rule of law, but the rule of yourself. And that is what is at odds right now. And that's why they had to arrest this Michigan gubernatorial candidate. So, also from the Daily Wire here, we have FBI raids home of Michigan GOP gubernatorial candidate and Whitmer challenger. Takes him into custody, a report. So
Whitmer is fucking evil.
Yeah, you can talk about that for a second. I gotta log in, apparently.
So Whitmer was also one of the ones who put COVID patients in nursing homes and killed off a whole bunch of elderly people. She was the one who had some of the most draconian lockdowns and was putting businesses out of business during COVID, and also had lockdowns for longer, called people who were protesting in front of the Capitol peacefully, saying that they wanted to end the lockdowns, calling them Nazis, because obviously if you are opposing the government using force to prevent you from going to your job, prevent you from leaving your home, and preventing you from engaging in commerce, that obviously those people who are opposed to the things, they're the fascists.
Clearly. Alrighty, so FBI writes home a Michigan GOP challenger. All right, Daily Wire says the FBI raided the home of Michigan Republican gubernatorial candidate Ryan Kelly on Thursday morning and reportedly took him into custody. Video reviewed by news outlet Bridge, Michigan, showed a man resembling Kelly being taken into a gray SUV, according to a report. Don't get into the SUV when they come to your house. Make them drag you into it. Never get into the government van. Chris Kelly, a relative and campaign treasurer for the Kelly campaign, said that he was, quote, aware of the Thursday morning law enforcement raid, but declined further comment, Bridge News reported. Reporter David Eggert of Crane's Detroit Business also reported that Kelly had been arrested at his home. It's got a tweet breaking. The FBI has arrested Republican candidate for governor Ryan Kelly at his home and has taken him into custody.
For what crime?
Running against Whitmer. Bridge News reported that Jonathan Osting provided an update to the reported raid and arrest, writing, quote, Ryan Kelly is facing multiple charges related to January 6, 2021. He has admitted that he was at the riots, but claims he did not go inside the U.S. Capitol. Jonathan Oosting, basically just that tweet that I just read out. Let's see here. So Daily Wire continues that Kelly is one of 5 GOP candidates who qualified for the August primary ballot. The real estate agent has organized protest against Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer.
Oh, well, there's the crime.
Yeah, strict COVID-19 lockdowns in 2020, and he was present at the January 6th Capitol riot. During the events of January 6, 2021, video footage allegedly shows Kelly encouraging protesters as they entered the Capitol building, which I'll add that is the exact crime that oh gosh, I can't remember what his name is now. The FBI guy that was on
Ray Epps.
Ray Epps. The exact thing that Ray Epps did. We've got him on camera multiple times throughout the day, leading the charge, encouraging people realizing what he's doing and yelling at him that he's a Fed. And then the January 6th committee, he's like the only one that wasn't arrested, that talked to the committee, and it was sealed in private. And then they decided that he had nothing of interest for them. Pretty clear that he was one of the federal agents that was put into the crowd to agitate and to create an event where there was not an event occurring. But all of a sudden they accuse this Kelly guy, this GOP candidate, and all of a sudden that becomes a crime again to encourage rioting and protesting. Let's see here. So the video footage also reportedly shows the Republican candidate climbing on scaffolding outside the building as groups of rioters breach the Capitol. Kelly has denied ever entering the building. Is it illegal to climb scaffolding? It might be like illegal to like damage and vandalize it, but is it like illegal?
It'd probably be a misdemeanor. I mean, like probably not a criminal law.
I mean, like, yeah, like it might be against the rules, but is there like a law that says you can't climb scaffolding on like Tuesdays or something?
No, I think the only thing it'd be trespassing because you're on someone's private property, and even then, if you trespass on someone's property and you are then warned to get off of it, if you leave immediately, that's not a crime unless there is posted signs. So I guess there's no signs on scaffolding saying, that you can't climb it. Thus, you climbing it and not having been warned to get off of it, you would not be charged with a crime.
So it's like is that like what it takes now to get arrested by the FBI? Is it like you climbed on some scaffolding and like yelled? Is that FBI worthy? Is that maybe not like a local police story or something?
I'm trying to find a video of what they're referring to, but I've never seen a video of him at Jan 6.
Well, I haven't seen the video either. I don't know that it's actually been released or like that it's known which video they're talking about. From my understanding is that the video is extraordinarily unclear. I mean, let's say it is him. It probably is. And I just don't care. Again, what are we are we arresting candidates now for climbing on scaffolding? Is that what we're doing now?
Well, I'm at the point of I don't believe them because the same people have already faked a kidnapping. They were inside of the Jan 6 crowd trying to instigate. So they lie and they false flag. So I don't believe a word they say till they present evidence. And 9 times out of time when they present that evidence, it's not evidence at all.
Yeah. The video footage. Let's see here. So the
Trump dossier was called evidence at some point, didn't it?
Yeah, it was. Let's see. Okay, so yes, climbed scaffolding and he denied entering the building. A spokesperson for Kelly told the Daily Wire that she had no further information. Another Republican candidate for governor, businessman Kevin Rinke, told the Daily Wire that he respects Kelly and is praying for him and his family as he waits for more information to come out about the FBI's raid. You know, it's funny because while Joe Biden was talking to Kimmel about arresting Republicans, I mean, the FBI was probably they're probably getting ready, probably staging for that raid, probably getting geared up, probably getting vehicles in place. I mean, that's pretty wild. Maybe it was a threat. Maybe Joe's a little sharper than we give him credit for. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Let's see here. So the reported FBI raid, I don't think it was reported. There's video of it. On Kelly's home throws more chaos into the Michigan Republican primary. So, I don't know if you know about this, Dyer, but we're about to get into some other stuff that's going to make you real happy. Last week, the hopes of 3 Michigan Republican gubernatorial candidates to get on the ballot for the August primary were slashed by the Michigan Supreme Court. So they just decided that 3 Republicans weren't good enough to be on the ballot and just took them off, and then they arrested a 4th.
Okay, so what was the justification for the court saying that they couldn't be on it?
Well, we got a whole story about that. Why don't we finish reading up this story, and we'll read up that whole story about why those other ones got kicked off the ballot. But it's thin reasoning at best. Let's see here. So this article continues about Kelly being arrested by the FBI. Actually, no, this one's going back into this other story. Daily Wire is mixing their stories here. Let's just start reading this other one. So, all right. So James Craig announces write-in campaign for Michigan GOP gubernatorial primary. Says ballot disqualification is crap. Well, that's strong language there, sir. All right. So former Detroit police chief James Craig announced he is planning a write-in campaign weeks after alleged forged signatures on his ballot petition disqualified him from appearing on the GOP gubernatorial primary ballot. Craig announced his write-in plans during an interview on Fox 2 Detroit Thursday night. The news station sat down with Craig and businessman Perry Johnson, who was also disqualified from the Republican primary ballot after the Michigan Bureau of Elections said Johnson's petition contains forged signatures. Wow, all of a sudden signatures can be forged in Michigan. Isn't it amazing?
Huh.
Quote, I'm not giving up. They have robbed me. They have robbed Perry. And guess what? Write-in. Craig told Fox 2 host Roop Raj. Quote, there are so many people that have reached out through my campaign who have said, Chief, you are a fighter. Don't give up. Continue to fight. We need you to do what you are doing. Guess what? I'm going to. When Raj asked Craig if he thought he had a chance to win with a write-in campaign, he responded, absolutely. Craig then went on to slam the decision to keep him off the ballot. Quote, this is crap. You know it's crap, he said. Quote, I have been approached by so many folks across the state who have called me and said, Chief, continue to fight. I got emails, text messages through my campaigns that say, Chief, we know you were robbed. And you know what? I'm not going to roll over because this is not about me as a candidate. This is about the voters of Michigan. They deserve to have the best candidate, and I'm going to tell you I'm going to win. I am the best candidate to unseat Governor Whitmer.
So the problem I have with this is the government has assumed the authority to tell someone that they cannot run for office and they cannot be on the ballot. See, I think that giving the government the ability to determine whether or not someone can or cannot be a candidate is a very dangerous weapon you've given them that allow them to control who can be in power, because whoever is in power will be able to perpetually only allow people to succeed them that they authorize or that they think that will not actually be dangerous to them. So there is no legal justification in my mind, no law you could pass that would allow that would be constitutional, saying that any metric would mean that someone could not run for office. There is no metric that you can say, and now what they say is, oh, we need to have at least some show of support. So you need to have a petition with enough names on it showing that you have some support. Well, you know what? Fuck that. If I have 0 names on a petition, if I want to run for office, you don't have the right to deny my candidacy. I think that giving that right is dangerous. Now, if you want to say that, oh, well, they have to have a show that there's a little bit of support just to, if we're going to go through the effort of putting them on the ballot, this takes time and effort. Okay, well, sure. You give them this unconstitutional standard of having to have 100 names or 1,000 names or 100,000 names, whatever the fuck crazy arbitrary number you pick. Now that you pick that arbitrary number, what gives you the right to say those names are valid or not?
Well, they didn't even really check. So the article continues that last week, following the findings from the Bureau of Elections, the Michigan Supreme Court upheld recommendations to keep Craig, Johnson, and another GOP candidate, Michael Markey, off the ballot. So that's 3 of them that they took off the ballot, plus they arrested another one. Craig's attorney, George Lewis, immediately fought back against the recommendation, claiming the Bureau of Elections violated state law by not checking every single signature they suspected of being fraudulent. Lewis said he has affidavits from 15 voters who signed on suspected fraudulent petition sheets, claiming they legitimately signed their names. So basically what it sounds like happened is that the Michigan Bureau of Elections just declared, well, some of these are forged signatures, and then validated that one of them may have been a forged signature and did not look at any of the other ones. They just said, well, one of them was, and that's a good enough sample size. Dyer, you deal with a lot of checking to make sure, auditing things and checking for stats and stuff like that. Is a sample size of 1 a really good statistical sample?
No.
Oh.
No, it's not.
Oh. Well, crap. I guess I'm not very good at stats then. Let's see here. So yeah, and then this guy, one of the lawyers for one of the candidates, they were able to prove that, oh, this one of these sheets that you declared was fraudulent. We've got a bunch of the names that are on that sheet. We have sworn affidavits, which are have the punishment, like the weight of law behind them. If you sign an affidavit, I mean, that is a legally binding statement. You can be arrested and charged with perjury for lying on an affidavit. It's illegal. And so these people said, yeah, these are our signatures. So you've got the Michigan Supreme Court says, well, this petition is fraudulent. And then a bunch of people on that petition validate, no, ours were correct. And then Michigan says, well, but maybe one of them's wrong. And we're just going to, better keep the Republican off the ballot than sorry and have them beat Whitmer. So,
and this is why you don't give the government the ability to determine who can run for office. And this is why you don't give the government the ability to determine whose signatures on the ballot request are legitimate or not, because it will be abused.
Yep.
There you go. You should never get in the power.
So Michigan's Supreme Court decision threw the Michigan GOP primary race into chaos, as Craig was the clear favorite to win the party's primary, and the anti-challenge Democrat Governor Gretchen Whitmer in November. So yeah, so basically they just went down the list. Any reason will do. So the January 6th gives you a really big mallet to hit people with, right? So you can go around and say, okay, well, we're Democrats. They're risking losing this seat in this state, so we'll try and pin them to this thing that we kind of made up, January 6th, and we'll arrest them for that, and that'll keep them out of the race. And it's like, well, there's a bunch of other candidates, and Gretchen killed a lot of old people. She actually verified killed a bunch of old people during her COVID decisions. And we still got some work to do. So why don't we just keep finding reasons? Oh, I know. The Republicans said that the Democrats, had fraudulent ballots last election cycle. So let's just we'll just turn that around on them. We'll just say that they've got fraudulent ballots, and then we'll just keep all of them off of the ballots. How about that? Wild.
They're playing every trick they can, every scheme they can to prevent people from being able to vote for the candidate they want to represent them.
Yes.
And they accuse us of being a threat to democracy.
What is a threat to democracy is gun control. I'm glad you asked, Dyer. So with guns being such a hot topic lately, the Democrats are racing to do something, to do anything, and a few feckless Republicans have decided to tag along with them. So we have this article.
Best time to to write policy is when you're really emotional and don't consider any facts, right?
I like how even Business Insider, which is not a right-wing publication, they just put the picture of Kinzinger about to cry. And actually, now that I'm looking at it, I don't know if that is the picture of him about to cry or if he just has about to cry face.
He might.
Don't you have some people that have like about to cry face?
Yeah, it's the people that are about to speak to me.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. Do they look like that?
Yes, usually.
How many sentences do you think it would take for you to get Kinzinger to cry?
Half a sentence.
Okay. So from Business Insider, there are 10 House Republicans that voted to raise the minimum age for buying a semi-automatic weapon from 18 to 21, which I believe actually even the title of this article is not precisely correct. I think maybe I was incorrect. I thought the bill was more about long rifles and the AR-15 style rifle. I guess maybe if the semi-automatic, then it would just be everything. I guess that would include shotguns too, because like everything's either automatic or semi-automatic. Like there's no semi sort of automatic. All right, so the key points in this article are that the House passed legislation that was this week. The House passed legislation that would raise the age limit from 18 to 21 to buy a semi-automatic weapon. The measure was part of the quote Protecting Our Kids Act. The PACA.
So it wouldn't affect any bolt-action rifles or pump shotguns, but it would affect every modern rifle and handgun.
Gotcha. So the measure was part of the Protecting Our Kids Act package of gun reform policies in the wake of mass shootings. There are 10 Republicans that voted in favor of raising the age limit, and they all need to be primaried.
I shouldn't have said modern because there's lots of modern bolt-action rifle. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let's see here. So lawmakers in the House of Representatives voted in favor of raising the age from 18 to 21 for semi-automatic weapons purchases in response to the mass shooting in Uvalde, Texas, and Buffalo, New York. The 228 to 199 vote occurred largely along party lines, with 2 Democrats voting against the bill and 10 Republicans siding with the Democrat-led proposed legislation, which also prohibits the sale of ammunition, magazines with a capacity of more than 15 rounds. Hey, what the hell?
Every last one of the Republicans need to be removed.
Wait. Is that for everybody, or is that just if you're under 21?
No, that means everyone.
What? But
which, by the way, would also eliminate a bunch of different firearms.
Yeah, like I can't. Like almost all of my guns have more than 15 rounds, and like I don't know how you could like. Ugh.
A lot of handguns have more than 15 rounds, but not
they should.
But that handgun can no longer be sold because it doesn't have, like, you can't have a smaller magazine unless you put a cork in it, I guess. And right, take it back, you can do that.
Well, yeah, you can. That's what Canada just proposed, was the permanent modification of a magazine that would prevent it from holding more than however many rounds they wanted. No, I want more. I want more rounds.
So what those 10 Republicans have done is the justification is bullshit. They just are using this as an excuse to make the incremental changes towards taking away the Second Amendment, and you are helping them to do it. It's not about Uvalde.
Crowder had a really, really great demo like 2 or 3 weeks ago about this magazine limit, and what he did is live on air. He showed how quickly he could change out his magazine, and he had a really like under a second time to change out his magazine. And his point was that somebody who's trained, if somebody's going to go on a mass shooting and they're dedicated to their craft and they want to get trained, the capacity of the magazine is irrelevant. They can change it out that fast. However, for somebody who's a little bit more casual and is in a self-defense situation where they are high adrenaline, difficult to focus, fight or flight mechanism, they're going to need those extra rounds, and they're not necessarily going to be able to swap out their magazine as fast as Crowder can, or as fast as somebody who's dedicated to doing harm to people can. So all this is really doing, again, is it's limiting the ability of somebody who's in a fight or flight situation to defend themselves, and somebody who is out there hunting humans. They're going to learn if the new capacity is 5 rounds, well, they'll just get really good at swapping out their magazine. They'll just get more magazines. This doesn't do anything for that. And it was really interesting to see him do that, because I disagreed with it on principle that you should have a magazine capacity, but I can understand the logic that the Dems have. The right always understands where the Dems are coming from, but they have no clue what we're thinking. So, I can understand the logic of a Democrat saying, well, if it takes so long to swap out a magazine, if we could just limit the capacity, then that would limit the amount of damage that could be done. And I can't swap out a magazine that fast.
Bucks. Another important thing is about the difference in context. So how you look through a bunch of concealed carry holsters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How many of those had a magazine pocket?
Maybe like half of them.
Okay. So a lot of them don't. And even the ones that do, you're wearing them with standard street clothes,
Any
right?
concealed carry is not, almost no concealed carries are going to have an extra mag.
So most
open
of them don't.
carries will, but most concealed carries will not have an extra mag clip.
Yeah.
There.
So most of the ones I've seen don't. There's possibility one out there that does, but the point is it's not staged and you're not prepped for a quick reload when you're in street clothes with a concealed carry, which is usually a less. It's not as easily accessible holster where it could have a magazine in there that you could pull out quickly. But the person who's out there trying to hunt humans, they usually have their mags staged, easily accessible, and they're more likely to be able to do a quick mag swap. And the person who's doing self-defense most likely doesn't have a spare mag
and
to swap.
Let's think about a hot burglary situation where you've got 2 or 3 seconds to grab your pistol and then get out of that room. And maybe you've got somebody following you through the house. Maybe you're trying to get out of the house, but you're mobile. And if you're at your home, you're probably, unless you're tactical like Dyer, you're probably not concealed carrying in your own home. Most people aren't. I mean, I'd say especially your wife's not. And she may be in a situation where she is able to grab something, but isn't able to let me fiddle with all these extra magazines and put them into my nightgown. No, you need to have the device. The device needs to be self-contained and have as many rounds as is practical inside of it, already ready to go. That is a decision that is up to you. That is up to you, to the consumer. As we had a conversation last week about what's the best caliber. The best caliber is the caliber that you can shoot reliably and accurately. It doesn't matter if it's a 50 BMG or a 22 long rifle. If you can shoot it accurately, that is the best round for you. What is the best magazine capacity? The best magazine capacity is the magazine capacity that fits into a gun and a form factor that is good for you, that you can hold in your hand, that you can conceal if you want, that you can readily get out of your nightstand if somebody's breaking into your home. That's the perfect magazine capacity for you. It is not up to the government to decide that there's a boundary on that. Maybe your perfect magazine capacity is 17+1, like mine. It's not up to the government to infringe upon my right to make that decision, to make that optimization. Now, what am I going to have to go figure out a different one? I have to go buy another gun. God forbid I have to go buy another gun. But I have to go buy another gun that's maybe not perfect or maybe not the one that I want or doesn't have the features that I want. I think I'm a decent shot. I don't go shooting every day, and I'm probably can't switch out a mag as quickly as Dyer can. I think the optimal magazine size for me is 17+1. I want that. I need that. If I'm going to protect myself, that's what's optimal for me. It is not up to the government. It's not even up for debate because it's a constitutional amendment. It's the Second Amendment. If you want to have a debate or a discussion about infringing on my right to make that decision for myself, you can do it only in the context of having a proposed constitutional amendment. So if the House wants to propose a constitutional amendment that strikes language from the Second Amendment, they can. It is constitutional for them to debate that on the House floor. It is not constitutional for them to pass a law that has anything to do with the Second Amendment, that is infringing on it. That is not a constitutional amendment. Passing this law is actually technically against the law. The idea that they were able to pass this law is itself unconstitutional. And I don't know if there's a mechanism for fixing that, other than that basically the mechanism that the founding fathers gave us was just let the legislative just be tyranny over the country.
You just say it was passed. It's for just the House, right?
Yeah, but still, it doesn't matter how far it went. It's unconstitutional if they attempted it. The founding fathers gave us this great system where the legislature can just have absolute tyranny over the country until enough people are materially injured and also survive it to sue them and get that reversed. Thank you, founding fathers. That was a fantastic safety check for us.
Yeah. 100% agree with you. I just want to make sure that we are careful in our language.
So this did not pass the Senate. It's not. It probably. Oh God, I don't think it's going to pass the Senate. But Jesus, anything's possible these days.
It is not currently law, but it is being threatened as a law being proposed that passed the House.
Yes.
Now, I think what you said is absolutely right. The thing is that us justifying the reasons why their reasoning is stupid should not be construed as being the justification for why such a law should not exist. The justification for why a law like this should not exist is simply because it is unconstitutional and that there is no justification they can make based off any reasoning that people should that adults should be stripped of their Second Amendment rights, because that right is so important and required for a civil society that we have that right. So they can come up with any reason they want, and we can tell you why that reason is stupid, but in the end, it doesn't matter. It's unconstitutional and should not exist.
Triumvirate says it might have some movement in the Senate, so I guess we'll see where that goes. I'm sure this won't be the last time we talk about it. Hopefully it takes a while to get through the Senate. But I did want to read for you the list of Republican traitors. We'll go through each one, and if they're in your state, I got a few in my state.
Vote them out.
Do not vote for them. So Representative Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania is a traitor to his country and hates the Second Amendment. Don't vote for him. Representative Anthony Gonzalez of Ohio. He voted for it. Representative Chris Jacobs of New York. Traitor. Representative John Katko of New York.
Traitor.
Representative Adam Kinzinger. Crybaby from Illinois.
Obviously a traitor.
Yes.
And a crybaby.
And I know I pronounced it wrong. Nicole Malitakis.
That's the name of a traitor from New York.
Yes, it is. It's French for traitor. Maria Salazar of Florida. She's had a lot of issues lately, too. I'm hoping that she gets out of there pretty quick.
Also traitor.
Chris Smith of New Jersey is a traitor. He looks pretty sleazy. Michael Turner of Ohio.
Traitor.
Out. Representative Fred Upton of Michigan.
Traitor.
Alrighty. So, if you have the ability to vote for them, don't. If you have the ability to vote against them, do. If you have the ability to run against them or help somebody in the primary against them, do. Alrighty. So, if you're confused as to why so many Republicans are voting for Democrat policies, well, then you just haven't been paying attention, because that's kind of what Republicans do. But if you are Joy Behar, I'm deeply, deeply sorry for you, then maybe you see a different reason for the Republicans switching sides that maybe you hadn't considered. So Joy Behar has a unique reason that she's discovered why maybe some of the Republicans are voting for gun control.
Oh no. She only has
AR-15 on one of their Most AR-15 owners are former military, 35 plus
Let me
and
say
married.
one more thing.
So that's all I'm saying is that they're not these crazy people.
Here's the thing. Once black people get guns in this country, the gun laws will change. Trust me.
There you have it, Joy
so
Behar.
fucking
It must be that those 10
So then
Republicans.
why is the Democrats have been against guns or have been for gun restriction for such a long time? If that's what it's
because
about.
they've hated black people for a really long
Oh,
time.
so maybe she's right. Maybe Behar is correct because
yeah, exactly. I think that she may be more correct than she realizes. So I guess the moral of the story here is that those 10 Republicans must have realized that black people have guns, and they joined the Democrats in their racist gun control policies.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. So next time you're talking to a Democrat and they're saying, we need common sense gun restrictions, right? Gun restrictions historically have been used to disadvantage black people. They were used to keep slaves from getting weapons.
I mean, look how scared Joy Behar is of the idea that black people might have guns. She's way ahead of the curve from most Republicans. She's like, most of you Republicans, you guys don't realize that black people have guns too. That's why I, Joy Behar, don't support having guns, because I don't want the black people to have them.
Yeah, she both is opposed to guns and also thinks being opposed to guns is what you do if you are racist.
Yeah. So if you're ever wondering what the motivation for gun control is, Joy Behar is the perfect example of that. She is just, again, like that mother in the first segment, she is just the average brain-dead white woman Democrat voter who's just mushing her head. And she thinks, and I bet you,
she said, if you are racist, you'd agree with me.
Yeah, I am willing to bet that reasoning is probably shared by a spooky number of white Democrat women. I would be very surprised if that wasn't true. I think that she maybe just gave away the game. I think she might have just given away the game and none of them realize it.
Wow. I've never seen so blatant racism.
Let's watch again. So again, Joy Behar gives the reason why somebody would support gun control. Let's watch.
Most AR-15 owners are former military, 35 plus
Let me
and
say
married.
one more thing.
So that's all I'm saying is that they're not these crazy people.
Here's the thing. Once black people get guns in this country, the gun laws will change. Trust me.
Trust her. There's so many racist white women like her in the Democrat Party. You better believe it. It'll change.
Oh my God. How is she still on that show?
Yeah. So, if you have somebody in your life that supports gun control, just ask them why they're so upset about black people having guns.
Why are you so racist? Jeez.
Yeah. All right.
The Democrats keep posting the Democrats can't do memes very well, right? One of the memes I keep seeing is a picture of a black family with guns and a picture of a white family with guns, and saying, "Why do you support this but not this?" I'm like, why do you think I don't support that?
I mean,
what in your brains is so racist that you think?
I hate commenting on it because, like, the way the left sees black people is it's like going to like a zoo and it's like, oh my gosh, like look at the black people, like they're doing a thing, and I hate that. But I do like when I see black people with guns, like that are like at the range, like learning how to do it. I interacted a couple of weeks ago at the range with a black mother who had a bunch of her children there, and it was the family gun range day, and they were having a blast, and they were doing gun safety stuff and all this stuff. I didn't chat to her about anything for very long, but I liked seeing that. I was like, this is great. This is great. This is a family activity, learning how to defend yourself together, doing something together. And it just happened to be that they were black. But I don't see why we should have a situation where it's like, oh, like, well, black people shouldn't be able to do that. Nobody should be able to have that experience just because black people are in it. I would say that I think that gun rights are black rights. I think that they're LGBT rights, trans rights, if that's what suits you. The Second Amendment rights, it doesn't say Second Amendment if you are a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. No. It says Second Amendment if you're an American. And that entails all of those different groups. So you got a lot of all of this fear that the left has that the Republicans are going to come and like put you in electrocution camps if you're gay, and was it Mike Pence is the lightning master? He's going to like shock me into being straight or something. Hot. What's the solution to that for the Republicans coming to take you to a camp in the middle of the night? I mean, they literally are saying that the Republicans are taking immigrants to concentration camps and killing them there. I mean, AOC said that multiple times. So what's the solution is to not have guns? What? And that not that my area is high crime or anything like that, but a black family that is a gun family that teaches their kids and brings them into gun culture, self-defense culture, responsibility culture. A big part of gun culture is that you have to be responsible. You have to have a care for yourself. You have to take responsibility and ownership for yourself and your actions. That is an indelible part of gun culture, and more families should have that. I mean, you were talking at the beginning of the show about a lot of people talking to their children like they're babies for far too long, and that has delayed adolescence. I mean, I would think that an antidote to delayed adolescence is introducing your children to something that increases the need for responsibility, increases self-ownership and self-responsibility, and taking control of your actions. And so I love seeing that. Joy Behar is a racist, and I really don't think that the left, what they think that the Republicans are doing to them, I can't comprehend how taking away guns is the solution. If I think Mike Pence is coming for me in the night to electrocute me, I want a gun. I want to have my 17+1. I need my 17+1 because Mike Pence is coming for me. Because ICE is going to put me in a detention center because I have vaguely Hispanic ancestry. I need 17+1 so that I don't get electrocuted in an ICE camp.
Fox, you need 17+1 so you can willingly go with Pence to get shocked.
We also have the Fifth Amendment in this country, which I will refuse to incriminate myself on.
Oh my god! I had something I was going to say, but I totally just lost it with that train of thought.
All right.
Anyways.
So our next story is about
killing Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
We should write. That sounds like a book title.
Yeah. No, that's going to be who's O'Reilly. Yeah. O'Reilly always does his like killing series. He was like Killing Lincoln and like killing like all. He has like a big series of books called Killing Somebody. And he'll like pick like a person and just like talk about how their character was assassinated. So I'm sure that he'll have Killing Kavanaugh at some point because it's just perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So, well, the Dems have their sights. The Dems always accuse you of what they're doing. And so maybe if they're trying to take my guns, maybe they're the ones who are going to come for me and electrocute me. You ever think of that?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. All right. So while the Dems have their sights focused on you for the high crime of being, believing in liberty and the Constitution, how dare you?
Name one communist dictatorship that was pro-LGBT. Exactly.
Not any conservative ones either. So
dictatorship and pro-LGBT
honestly,
don't seem to go well
you want the only country and government that is like supportive of LGBT is America. Like that's really
no. That's bullshit. They're not supportive of LGBT because they tie them to pedophilia and to kink.
I didn't say the Democrats. I just said like America. Like if you're gay, America is the best place to live. Like that. There's nearly no other options.
Oh, okay. If that's your metric, yes, this is probably the best place to live.
Yeah, I'm talking about the country. I'm not talking about the current party in power.
I think that the country as a whole is not pro because a lot of the people in power are actually trying to corrupt LGBT, like trying to put them into culture and try to like pair them with all these evil things, and that was going to breed hatred of them, right?
Yeah. But that's all like anti-American stuff. That's Democrat policy. So I just mean like from the most general sense, on the average of the last 50 years, the best place to live and be gay is
But we
in
can
America.
do better.
we could by giving us more guns so that we don't have unwanted visits from people to electrocute us. The wanted ones can say, though. All right. So
sorry, I interrupted you. Keep going.
Kavanaugh. So while the Democrats have their sights focused on you for the high crime of believing in liberty and the Constitution, the leftist foot soldiers are running rampant. After the leak of the draft decision on Roe versus Wade last month, and the weeks of encouragement by the Democrats to protest outside of Supreme Court justices' houses, and the doxing of Supreme Court addresses, this week, one of the Democrat supporters tried to kill Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh on Wednesday.
If you are a New York Times reader, though, you may not have heard, as that outlet decided to bury the story on page A20. Is there a B20? Anyways, someone tries to kill a Supreme Court justice, and it's on page A20.
Yeah, it's next to like the man bites dog stories, and someone got, a kitty got stuck in a tree, like that sort of stuff.
That should be our leading story.
Yeah, I would
most
say
likely
front page news.
Front pages. Yeah.
I mean, imagine if anybody tried to kill who's the new one, Ketanji. That would have been wall-to-wall coverage for hours, days, weeks. I mean, that probably would have been the next January 6th. I bet you if
AOC not actually being threatened with death was a headline on the front page. So
that's true. But yeah, imagine if it was somebody targeting Ketanji. That would have been the next January 6th. It would have said, "Oh my gosh, January 6th. That was the obvious precursor to this happening, and now this thing happened, and now we're going to focus on this for years at a time and have primetime hearings about it." All right, so if you're a New York Times reader, which, I mean,
why would you be?
Yeah, you're in a very very small cohort there. You probably didn't know about this. So Daily Wire did a nice piece on it. So let's see here. So Daily Wire says, here's what the man who said he wanted to kill Kavanaugh told the police on the phone. Let's see here. So I actually have the transcript here, which would be interesting to read, and I'll have to make sure I censor myself in real time in case anything weird gets said. So in calls made to 911 before he was arrested, a California man charged with attempting to kill a Supreme Court justice reportedly said that he was thinking about killing himself and that he needed psychiatric help. That was probably true. Authorities arrested Nicholas, which we're not going to read the name, arrested the shooter or attempted assassin of Sim Valley, California, in the Washington suburb of Chevy Chase, Maryland, early Wednesday. A Department of Justice affidavit details how the assailant allegedly traveled to Kavanaugh's home armed with weapons and burglary tools with the intent to kill the justice and prevent him from ruling on Second Amendment and abortion cases. And if Kavanaugh has any balls or beer left in him, he better just say, I'm going to just default slash all the Second Amendment stuff where everything's unconstitutional. We're going to open up the floodgates on it. No abortion, no restrictions on guns. Have a nice day. See ya. Let's see here. So audio recordings obtained by Montgomery County Police Department and obtained by CNN show that in the middle of the night on Wednesday, the assailant called 911 twice and told the operator that he had weapons in a bag and was having suicidal thoughts. I need psychiatric help, he told the operator, the publication reported. There's pepper spray, he reportedly told the operator, who asked if he had any other weapons besides the gun he mentioned. There's a knife, there are tools, no other firearms, no explosives, nothing like that. Just a knife and some pepper spray and some guns. I'm not a crazy person, not explosives, nothing like that. When you send the SWAT team, you can just get away with 12 guys. You don't need 13. Don't wake up the bomb dogs. Good God. I'm not a nutcase. The operator then reportedly questioned him, quote, "And you said you came from California. Do you know someone down here?" To which he responded, "Brett Kavanaugh, the Supreme Court Justice." Oh, no. Maybe this is Squee. Do you remember Squee?
No.
Squee was one of the friends that Kavanaugh had that was mentioned in his diaries that he drank with. And they would boof. Squee was one of the guys that Kavanaugh boofed with. He was like, that's like very esoteric trivia from that event. I don't blame you for not knowing that, but squee. All right. Let's see here. So the 911 operator said, "Okay, and what were you coming here to do? Just to hurt yourself and him, or what was going to happen?" The operator reportedly asked. "Correct," the assailant answered, according to CNN, before telling the operator that he had figured out Kavanaugh's address partially from an article that contained a picture of the justice's home, displaying the house and street number. Yeah, this is the, oh, won't someone rid me of that priest? This is, it's called sarcastic terrorism, where you, as a public figure or a media personality, you give everybody the information that they would need to conduct something like this, like the address and dates and times, and then you put the idea in their head as to reasons why, if nobody does anything, if Kavanaugh lives, God willing, he'll vote on gun stuff and abortion stuff, and there's just nothing that can be done, wink wink nod nod, and here's his house number, and here's when his kids get home, and here's where he lives at, oh darn, if he survives, man, guns, abortion. That's basically what's been going on the last 3 weeks. And then all of a sudden, what this guy pops up. He's clearly mentally deranged. And then he said, "Yeah, I'm crazy, and I found where Kavanaugh lives because the media told me." Let's see here. The assailant had taken a taxi to Kavanaugh's home. He continued and said, and it, quote, dropped me off at his address. It's pretty wild that you can just tell a taxi cab the address of a Supreme Court justice and just it goes there. I mean, I guess the taxi cab probably wouldn't know that it was a special address, but it's just interesting. Let's see here. So I'm just around the corner from it, he reportedly told the operator, sharing that he was planning to kill himself as he didn't think he could get away with it. Man. The assailant also said that he had been hospitalized a lot of times. Yeah, I believe that. The 26-year-old Californian appeared in federal court Wednesday in Greenbelt, Maryland, and agreed to stay in jail. Why does he have to agree to stay in jail? Why isn't he just in jail? I would say he was put in jail. I don't know that his agreement is largely irrelevant.
Yeah, when was the last time you were committing a crime and then you saw someone committing a crime and when they were getting arrested, the police asked them for their permission to get arrested?
What if he said no? I'd be like, oh man, we never had that. We don't got a form for that one.
You're not gonna let me arrest you?
Are you sure you don't want to just agree?
What if I paid you?
Well, I guess we have to let you go then. Yeah, nobody's done that before. So weird. Okay, then. Let's see here. So, asked by District Judge Tim Sullivan if he understood what the charges were that were brought against him, the assailant said that he, quote, wasn't thinking clearly and that he was on medication that he had taken that day, but that he had understood that he understood what was going on according to the publication. Yeah, I mean, I get pills make it crazy, and there's a lot of issues with that, but, I think that listen, Big Pharma's got its problems pumping all of our kids with antipsychotics and Adderall to the gills and then just dumping it in the water supply. That's a problem. It is. And it is making people crazy. But I think that some people that are anti-pharma, they make a bigger deal about the pharmaceuticals than what I think is really warranted. I think at some point people do have to take responsibility for their actions. For instance, when you get drunk, really drunk, and black out and say, oh, I don't know, let's say you're Nancy Pelosi's husband and you crash your car into somebody and you kill your brother. You don't really remember doing it. And you probably wouldn't have done it if you hadn't drank all the alcohol. We don't talk about big alcohol. We don't say, Pfizer and Budweiser, they're basically the same thing, right? We really got to get after that Budweiser company. They're putting too many alcohols out in the world there, pumping our kids full of alcohols. We do that with Pfizer, and I get that it's an issue. I definitely do. But you have to take responsibility for yourself at some point. It can't just be I'm going to take responsibility for this one bad decision to take this pill. And then everything, I just basically get a get out of jail free card. Everything that happens after that, well, I was crazy. I was on drugs. I didn't, I can't be held responsible for my actions. Yes, you can. You actually
the
can.
The only time where you are on a drug and it led to your state of mind leading to you committing a crime where you can say it was not your fault was when that drug was given to you without your consent.
Yeah. So this guy, the reason why I bring that up is because the complexity of the action here. So this guy came from California to near DC in Maryland. That is like literally as far as you can possibly travel in the continental United States. Like it is actually coast to coast. Yeah. You have, and I don't know if he flew there or drove there, but it's that is a very, very complex act. That requires
he flew with guns and a knife, and I think he drove.
Yeah, probably. Well, yeah, but where would he have gotten a gun in California? I don't know. He could have flown somewhere and then bought a gun there.
There are California guns.
I'm sure that there'll be more information on this to come, but either way, extraordinarily complex action. There was planning. The stuff that was in his bag was like kind of crazy overkill. He had a bunch of like burglary tools to like lock picks and stuff like that. He also had like duct tape and the flexi cuffs and zip ties and pepper spray, and it was like he was planning to have some fun that night. Like he had a lot of stuff in that bag, which I don't know if this article is going to go through it, but there was a lot of stuff in that bag.
Yeah.
And he drove traveled an extremely long distance. I mean, and then just to plan that travel would take a day. I mean, the complexity of this action, you can't just say, oh, well, Pfizer, man, they gave him one of those antipsychotics, and that's what's making these kids crazy these days. We really got to go after Pfizer. No.
He wasn't in an irrational state of mind where he's just completely nuts, so crazy. He had a detailed plan, or at least someone had a detailed plan for him. But the amount of thought that goes into that kit and the amount of effort would be required to get all those things, I doubt he was off his rocker. I do wonder though if someone's trying to take advantage of someone who's is crazy and is trying to coax him.
Oh yeah, what do you want to bet the next couple of weeks here? It's like, oh yeah, like he knew a bunch of FBI people and they were on his Discord and they were talking to him and all this stuff.
So no evidence here.
There has been There's nothing that's been said like that yet, except for just me now speculating. But I just won't be surprised because that seems to have been the pattern lately. Is like everybody who went on a shooting spree, which actually the thing that would make me think that this maybe wasn't an FBI operation is that he wasn't successful in it.
Well, I mean, if you they're trying to get someone who's already crazy and try to coax them into doing something. It's always the possibility that that person is just going to act irrationally because they're irrational, right? So I think that they put him in a position, he's in a position where he could have done it, but he I guess chickened out, right?
Yeah. And good for that happening. But also it's kind of bad that's how he got caught, right? Because like if he hadn't chickened out,
he could have actually done it because
it would have been.
I didn't catch him.
He'd have been a little more successful. Yeah, exactly. He went all that way and no flags went off. Yeah, well, all right, well. So.
Yeah, so just to reiterate, no evidence that he was being, false flagged by the FBI, but I just wouldn't be surprised at this point.
So the assailant, Daily Wire continues, the assailant told authorities that he was upset about the, quote, leak of a recent Supreme Court draft decision regarding the right to abortion, as well as the recent school shootings in Uvalde, indicating that he believed the justice that he intended to kill would side with Second Amendment decisions that would loosen gun control laws. So there you go. You've got the Democrats again. This the Democrat machine just creating these scenarios where it's like, oh well, we'll just casually leak out their address. We'll leak out that this is what they're deciding to do. We'll leak out what the votes are going to be. We'll say all these things and say, well, really Uvalde was Brett Kavanaugh's fault. It wasn't the fault of the police that were there that were cowardly. It was Kavanaugh's fault because he supports the Constitution.
You're talking about earlier about the dangerous drugs that we complain about. I think the most dangerous drug that that America is on right now is the left-wing media, poisoning their minds with lies and encouraging them to.
A pill from Pfizer is not going to put an idea in your head. The mainstream media is.
Yes, it's far more dangerous drug is the mainstream media.
Yes. Alrighty. Let's see here. We've got. Yeah, so it was kind of inevitable that something like this would happen. You've got
inside the wall
Democrat rhetoric like this, which I think I need to skip ahead a bit.
Over the last 3 years, women's reproductive rights have come under attack in a way we haven't seen in modern history. From Louisiana to Missouri to Texas, Republican legislatures are waging a war on women, all women. And they're taking away fundamental rights. I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
Well, I would certainly say that an assassination attempt is quite the whirlwind and price to pay. But some Democrats were a little more overt in their rhetoric. Let's take this tweet, for instance, which is actually a tweet that we covered a few weeks ago. And it has since been deleted. But Jack Posobiec was so kind as to reshare it to the internet so that we don't lose it. Jack Posobiec says, "Hey, Simon Glenn, why did you delete this? And what is it that Simon Glenn posted?" Well, you can see maybe why he deleted it. Let's see here. So Simon Glenn, which we covered this a couple weeks ago. So he said, quote, interesting, he tweeted this out, quote, interesting real life trolley problem in America right now. If you had the chance to kill one of these people, I'm not going to read their names, the two oldest right-wing Supreme Court judges, should you do it while Biden can get his nominee to replace them confirmed? It's interesting as an abstract question, but it becomes a real conundrum if, say, you're terminally ill and have little to lose yourself, but know that it could save many women's lives in the future. So he deleted this.
Ooh, wow. Yeah, I saw that earlier.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's definitely trying to encourage someone who has nothing to live for because they think they're terminal, saying, hey, you should assassinate one of these Supreme Court justices.
Think of how many women's lives you could save.
You could go out with a bang. Your death, your sacrifice could save a bunch of lives, in his opinion. That is an encouragement to assassination, if I've ever heard it.
Well, I mean, there's a war on women, right, Dyer? I mean, that's what you go to work for every day. Is you just have to.
There's a lot of women babies that are getting aborted. I'd agree on that.
How many women have you drone strike this week, Dyer? What's the war on women doing?
I personally, or the organization I belong to.
let's steer away from that one. It maybe got too true. Fuck. Alrighty. So little, not super surprising that this happened, and the Democrat just not caring reaction, like no reaction whatsoever, bury it on page A20. Unsurprising as well. And this again is another example of the Republicans breaking the rules. Joe Biden's rules. It really makes you wonder, what are the rules then? What are the rules if the Democrats are not breaking the rules and the Republicans are? It really makes you wonder, who are the rules designed for? It seems like just Joe Biden. Alrighty. We do have one more story, but I just want to give you guys a quick recap of all these stories kind of as like one narrative flow for the week. So this was kind of a crazy week. So just to recap the timeline, we had on Tuesday, June 7th, Matthew McConaughey press conference at the White House. On Wednesday, June 8th in the morning, somebody tried to kill Kavanaugh. On Wednesday, June 8th, later that night, Joe Biden had a Jimmy Kimmel interview where he talked about Republicans breaking the rules, not the Democrats. And then he also referenced arresting GOP, people from the GOP. And then a couple hours later on June 9th, Thursday morning, a GOP candidate was arrested by the FBI. And then later that night on Thursday, June 9th, we had the January 6th hearings. So I can run through the last segment myself, Dyer, if you do have to go. Do you want to do your goodbyes?
I do need to go. So sorry, guys. Wife is saying she wants my attention right now. So we'll see you guys. I'll see you guys. Not next show. Next show is Father's Day, yeah?
Yes.
So we'll skip a week. We'll see you then. It's been fun. Dire Wolf out.
All right. Trevi's hanging out because we got one more story to go through. See you, Dyer. Good having you with us. Alrighty. So, our last story here is economics. So, economics is not doing real well. Let's watch.
Localities should be spending the money that he has allocated to invest in police departments and training of police officers. It appears as though the president did have a slight trip there as he's boarding.
Yeah, a slight trip. While walking up a flight of stairs is Joe Biden's biggest struggle. A close second is the economy. Like so many things, the Biden administration, like so many things in the Biden administration, the problem isn't just Joe's incompetence. It's the incompetence of the people he has chosen to put in charge of key positions. Let's take Janet Yellen, for instance, who recently discovered this new economic health indicator called inflation.
There's no question that we have huge inflation pressures, that inflation is really our top economic problem at this point, and that it's critical that we address it. So I do expect inflation to remain high, although I very much hope that it will be coming down now.
Oh, she hopes. Don't worry, guys. She hopes it will come down. Wow. She's the Treasury Secretary, and the best she can give you is a hope that inflation will come down. Maybe she's got some prayers, too. Hopes and prayers. And you're going to need those prayers with the type of inflation that we're seeing right now. This is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the new Consumer Price Index. The inflation numbers have come out. See if I can get zoomed in on this any more than I possibly am. Let's see here. Alrighty. So, the new numbers for May last month are 8.6. Woof. All right, so 8.6 items are overall in general, 8.6% inflation means that items are 8.6% more expensive now than they were this time last year. But that's just on average. If you start drilling down, things get even more dire, which means bad. I wrote that part for Dyer, and he left before it even came up. He's going to be so disappointed. So let's look at food. So food is at 10.1%. So food's outpacing general inflation, which kind of makes you think that they added a bunch of extra crap into the general inflation number to try to drag it back down. Because I would say food and energy are really the only things most people care about. And as you can see, food's higher than the average inflation, and energy is way higher than average inflation. So food at 10.1%, that's the thing that you eat, and it costs 10% more to eat it this time now than it did last year. At the same time, the Biden administration has ordered literally gigatons of corn to be turned into ethanol and blended with gasoline, which is actually not great. Ethanol was a theoretical dream and boon to fuel efficiency a long time ago, but new science has come out that shows that really it's not all it's cracked up to be, and turning food into things that you just burn electricity and cars and stuff like that is probably not the best use of food that you eat. I mean, especially after the invasion in Ukraine really disrupting the global food supply chains. And America, not that I think that we need to be giving it away. We could maybe, sell it. That's what normal countries do, is they sell their surplus. America just gives it away. If we want to sell our surplus to Africa or Europe or the Latin America, great. I love it. Let's do it. But if we're just going to give it away, then I guess we might as well just put it into a tractor and burn it. But either way, Joe Biden has ordered an absurd amount of food to be turned into gasoline, which is kind of crazy considering that, I think if you ask the average person, they would probably say, yeah, I think people should be eating that rather than us just burning it and creating carbon in the atmosphere. I mean, ethanol still creates carbon. It still has a carbon footprint in it. So, the Democrats are the ones that supposedly care. They're the ones that supposedly care about world hunger and all this stuff. And they also supposedly care about climate change and carbon emissions and all that stuff. And they're literally just burning food. Joe Biden ordered them to burn food. I don't get it. Let's see here. But don't count on burning food to lower energy costs at all, because they are still up 34.6%. So you've got Joe doing everything he can but drilling. You've got releasing all of the oil from the strategic reserve, which, God forbid we ever actually need that. And then we're just burning corn, and energy prices are still up 34.6% from this time last year, which is off the charts. If you click on the energy and you drill down more, you can see that, let's see here. So let's go to energy services. Is that what I want? Yeah, energy services. So natural gas pipes. So that is like the natural gas that you're using to heat your home. So you're probably either using natural gas or electricity to heat your home. A lot of people up north, which is like half the country, has like near zero winters, and like a good quarter of the country has sub-zero winters up in the northern latitudes. A lot of your northern latitudes, electricity just doesn't cut it. You got to have the natural gas, and that's very common. And so what's the inflation on it? Well, it's gone up 30.2% in a year for natural gas. Electricity has gone up 12%. We're not even to winter yet. People are going to freeze this winter. Let me repeat that. People are going to freeze this winter because they won't be able to afford their gas. There will be, I almost guarantee you that there will be this winter. There's probably going to be, and this is going to be a kind of a way out there prediction, so I'm going to be kind of vague in my terms, but there will be something that happens, maybe another polar vortex. It's going to get cold. People will have stopped paying on their natural gas bill because of how expensive it is. And there will be a movement to nationalize. There'll be a movement to nationalize certain aspects of natural gas, because after all, we can't allow these greedy corporations to allow grandma to freeze in Minnesota. So you'll see Republicans swayed by that, even the new ones that'll probably be in office or close to office by then, especially if something like this happens during the lame duck session between the midterm election and when they take office in January. You could see some wild stuff with energy getting nationalized. This is how that happens. Energy doesn't get nationalized if it's flat. Energy gets nationalized when you're starting to see high double digit inflation, and it gets cold. We're in for some hurt coming up here, and it's because of Joe Biden. Absolutely. I guess you can just burn more corn when it drops to -10. Let's see here. So even though Janet Yellen just discovered inflation, she's not really sure. Okay. Janet Yellen just discovered inflation, but she's still confident that government printing more money is not what causes it. So she just discovered it, but she's very confident about what doesn't cause it.
Secretary Yellen, if you admit that you are wrong about inflation being temporary, how can you be confident that government spending is not the cause of inflation?
Heading to the car right now. But
did you ever warn the White House that
literally
increased government spending could have contributed to the inflation that we're seeing today?
Walking to the car so my mouth doesn't work.
We're just heading to the car. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So no word on whether or not printing more money causes inflation. Maybe Janet can crack open an Econ 101 textbook and learn that. That's where I learned that. Let's see here. So if inflation has you down, though, don't fret. Just buy a electric vehicle, you big poor dopey moron. That's right. If you're poor, it's just you're
I
just
do have
stupid.
to say, just on the issue of gas prices, after waiting for a long time to have enough chips in this country to finally get my electric vehicle, I got it and drove it from Michigan to here this last weekend and went by every single gas station, and didn't matter how high it was. And so I'm looking forward to the opportunity for us to move.
Yeah, that's right. She's smart, so she bought an electric vehicle. If you haven't bought an electric vehicle, you're probably just stupid. That's why. You're dumb. You're not smart like her. She's smart because she bought an electric vehicle. So when I first watched this clip, I was actually kind of confused what she was talking about, because she said she was waiting for enough chips to buy her electric vehicle. And I I initially thought, I was trying to figure out what she was talking about, and you probably have already figured it out. I was listening to it differently, I guess. I thought that maybe when she said that she was waiting for enough chips to get her electric vehicle, that she was like talking about some like, it was like some campy way that the elites talk about money. Like, I don't know. And so at first I was kind of pissed that like she had this like elitist way of talking about money. It wasn't even like, oh, I was waiting for enough cash. It was like, oh, my chips are in. And then I realized that she wasn't talking about like currency. She was talking about the computer chips, and the computer chip shortage is why she couldn't get her electric vehicle. So not only do you have to be an elitist with a lot of money to buy an electric vehicle, it's a vehicle that only the rich can buy in the first place. She also highlighted that even if you are rich, you can't get one because there's a chip shortage. So what is she talking? This is the plan. This is the Democrats' plan, is that everybody buys an electric vehicle. How? Even if you're rich, you can't get one because of chip shortages. And I actually know people, and I've seen some of the more prominent YouTubers have talked about they're very like hyper 1% struggle problems of like, oh, well, I tried to buy this or that and I couldn't get it. Linus Tech Tips recently did a review on electric vehicles and talked about how he was trying to purchase one for his parents, and it was almost impossible to get one because the waiting lists were so long because of the chip shortages. I know a relative who was trying to buy a Tesla, and they've been on a waiting list for like 5 months, I think. My parents actually just tried to purchase an electric hybrid, and they're on this like really long waiting list for it too, and the options were very, very, very limited. Again, woe is them, which I tell my mom all the time. But again, even if you could buy one, you can't, or you can't buy one quickly. I mean, if you're on a waiting list for like 4 or 5 or 6 or 12 months, I mean, inflation, we went up 30% in a year on gas already. I mean, geez, I don't, you start talk about pulling your time horizon up when you got inflation that high. You have to really pull your time horizon, unless you're like up in like the top 1 or 5%. You really got to start looking more near term. And what are you going to do near term? Because this long-term planning, you can't do long-term planning. If you're part of a company right now, you probably are seeing your company's not doing a lot of investing right now. They're not looking at doing a lot of expansion. They're looking at seeing where can they find stability, because you can only expand your business or invest in your business, or like as a person, invest in yourself, like invest in like remodeling your house or buying a car or doing something like that. You really can't make those kind of long-term plans unless there's economic stability on the horizon. If you're looking out on the horizon and seeing like, oh, wow, prices are just like out of control, I probably don't want to buy a Tesla right now, because in a year from now, I might have a hard time getting bread. That's what we're looking at right now. So again, it's actually even worse than I thought, because in her very self-aggrandizing, I didn't realize it was legal to masturbate in Congress like that. Very self-aggrandizing, bragging that she has an electric vehicle and you don't. She also pointed out why you can't have an electric vehicle even if you could, because they just don't exist. Like, there's no chips. Let's see here. So I want to play the last little bit that she said there, because I'm going to focus on that for a second.
Weekend and went by every single gas station, and didn't matter how high it was. And so
that's right. It didn't matter how high it was. And that's the kicker, folks. The rich who can afford to buy an electric vehicle, once they do get it, they, quote, don't care how high the gas goes. Isn't that crazy? You starting to see the picture here? She is rich enough to buy an electric vehicle, so she don't care how high gas goes. You think Congress is going to solve the gas crisis? Do you think that Joe Biden is going to solve the energy crisis when they don't care how high it goes because they have an electric vehicle? That's the name of the game, guys. Alrighty. Have real quick here. Let me see here. Did have a bit on Joe Biden's, oh man, is Reuters not going to work here? There we go. All right, so from Reuters, Joe Biden's public approval falls to 36%. It's almost down. It's going to meet gas inflation at some point, where your petrol price is going to reach to Biden's disapproval rating, and they're going to cross over. That'll be a fun graph. Let's see here. So Biden's public approval falls to 36%, the lowest of his presidency, and like I think a record on like at least some time scales, like pretty far back before you get a president like that. I would say probably at least before modern polling techniques. And modern polling techniques are where you just add in 70 extra Democrats per 100. Let's see here. So Reuters says U.S. President Joe Biden's public approval rating fell this week to 36%, which actually it was Stex Hexenhammer pointed this out in a video a few weeks ago. Joe Biden's approval rating has been stuck at like 40% for like a very long time, like 4 or 5 months. I mean, he kind of went through and did a little bit of a breakdown on that if you're interested, but basically it just like it seems like it just reached a floor where either I guess just the Democrat or the polling places were just flooding so many extra Democrats to try to boost those numbers that it just stuck at 40. That's kind of where the equilibrium was. But apparently even either that's not working anymore, or the polling agencies have decided to stop covering it up. So something happened, and Stex I don't think was clear on what happened. It was just a trend that he noticed, and I noticed it too, where you just have this floor at about 40, you dip into 39, you go up to 41, and just sit there right around 40 for 4 or 5 months now, and it's finally broken through. And I don't know why. But I would say it probably deserves to go lower, and I bet you it will. This is the lowest level of his presidency as Americans suffered from rising inflation, according to Reuters' Ipsos poll on Tuesday. The 2-day national poll found that 59% of Americans disapprove of Biden's job performance. His overall approval was down 6 percentage points from 42% last week. Remember, most popular president in history, 87 million votes, more than like 12 or 15 million more than Obama got. Let's see here. So Joe Biden's approval rating has been below 50% since August, raising alarms that his Democrat Party is on track to lose control of at least one chamber of Congress in the November 8th midterm election. Yeah, at least one. In a sign of weakening enthusiasm among Democrats, Biden's approval rating within his own party fell to 72% from 76% the prior week. Only 10% of Republicans approve of his job performance in office. Alrighty, so let's talk more about how it's low and how it sucks. Alrighty, one last part here on the economy. So Joe Biden's failing economy, failing numbers, probably related. This was an interesting graph that's been going around this week. It is a graph of the wage inflation versus the price inflation. So you can see it broken up by administration here. And you can see during the Trump years that your blue line, which is your wage inflation, it was right at or just a little bit above price inflation. So basically, if, for instance, in 2018, inflation was at 3%, but your wage inflation was also at 3%. So on average, if you guys were getting cost of living adjustments, you were probably about keeping up. I know not everybody gets perfect wage inflation every year, but on average, you weren't falling behind quite as quickly. And over the course of the full 4 years, it's likely that you were better off at the end of that 4 years than you were at the previous 4 years. Your dollar, the value of an hour of your time, you could buy more with it in 2020 than what you could in 2016. Again, looking at what's the value of an hour of your time, not really looking at the dollar value because those are moving around. But based off the price inflation and your wage inflation, the value of your hour of time in 2020 was better than it was at the beginning of Trump's presidency. And then you can see after the election in the beginning of 2021 during the Biden administration, all of a sudden wage inflation just falls off a cliff. It just goes straight to the bottom. something happened. Well, we'll get into that in a second. And then all of a sudden, the red line, that price inflation just shoots through the roof really high. And what's going on there? Well, there's a couple of reasons why, and it's really up for interpretation. But I would say that signing a bunch of executive orders that canceled a pipeline and a bunch of drilling. I mean, you're probably talking about like directly in the 50,000 jobs directly. But that's also probably 1 million jobs indirectly that you're at least shuttering, if not eliminating. So I would say right off the bat, I would say, I'd point at that and say, is that going to move this line that drastically? Probably not on its own, but those are just some of the highlights that you can point to as like very visible, obvious things. The Joe Biden economic policy has been to do that broad scale everywhere in the economy, is to cancel things that make jobs and to increase price, decrease supply. That's what the Joe Biden economy is. And so I think, again, a lot of reasons why this looks like this, but it's pretty clear that something changed. Something changed after the election. It wasn't that, Trump gave him a bad economy or COVID gave him a bad economy. COVID had been going for almost 2 years. By that point, it had been going, let's see here. Yeah, almost 2 years, I think. Or was it a year? Yeah, it's hard to remember. I think it was a year. Yeah, I think it had been going for a full year when it got handed off. And so I would say that a full year, especially when we did lockdowns in May, I would say that would have shown up in the data at some point during the Trump administration. And what we see is not really, not in the direction that it did under the Biden administration. So what did Joe do that was so significantly different than the Trump administration's response? That's the big question. And I think again, just look at his administration. It's just everything. But that would be, in my opinion, a big explanation for the switch. So what does this mean? Again, during the Trump years where you've got your wage inflation is above price inflation, you're doing better off. Under the Biden administration, those flipped rather dramatically, and now your wage inflation is under the price inflation. So the price inflation is going up faster than you're getting a bigger paycheck. So your an hour of your time, you can buy less things with it now than what you could have at the end of the Trump administration. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter why. That's what matters. And whoever's in office, I don't want excuses. I want more value out of my time, and I'm sure you do too. And I think that the voters in November, and dear God, if we can make it to 2024, I think that the voters are going to realize that too. It's not about it's not the American people are tired of excuses. We don't have room for excuses anymore. We want action. We want people who can make action, and I think DeSantis can do that. I think he's shown that he can. Alrighty, guys. Well, that has been the show today. Thank you for joining us on this bonus episode again. And we will be off next week. Dyer has Father's Day duties, and I will probably also be having Father's Day duties. Thank you, guys. Have a good week. Stay safe out there. And remember, the perfect caliber and the perfect magazine count is whatever's perfect for you. All right. See you guys. Treves signing off.